No, I just looked on the south, but everyone else had stuff they were doing. I ran into Dave and Ellsworth. He's trying to get money for track.
That's what this gentleman came is for too.
Yeah.
We don't want money, we just want permission to go get money.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes. Who would have thought? We get people that want to give, but I guess we have to have permission to let them give.
Yeah. How you doing, Brandon? Wayne? Surviving?
Yeah. Talking to your members. Had a couple discussions with one in particular a couple times this week. Had a couple with one of your teachers a couple of times this week. Just about, I'm sorry you know everything that I know.
Yeah.
This she told me today. It's frustrating.
She told you why you wanted to do it?
What she told, she's, what, I don't know what I said, I don't wanna play this friends gaming entity. He told you, you told me.
You're what? Sorry.
I believe she talked to you.
She did, yeah.
Yeah. And, this whole thing is
Very much so. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's
yeah. Okay. Refresh. I did not.
What?
Sorry.
Oh, look at your boys.
Oh, that's.
That's last year, right?
Yeah.
Horrible.
The home screen
Do you
is a
have a
computer
recent
one.
one?
Yeah.
Seen that one before.
That one.
Oh, that I, yeah. I've seen that one. Very cute.
Hey, Earth. No.
Not really.
Was she ever?
Lighter very
It's
good.
like you got an alley there.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather was Northern Italian, born in July.
I'm very little.
My grandmother on my other side was Northern Italian, blonde in July.
Probably not.
It's obviously
It's
there.
in there.
Yeah.
Clearly, it came
I'm-
from somewhere.
Well, you know, I'm not forcing her to take a German test.
Actually, 60.
I wanted a redhead, man. I was telling, because my kids followed Lisa, dark, you know, darker and then blonde. We're talking about redheads.
Okay.
I was gunning for one.
I know, I was just for one of you as well. Would've been great.
back was,
Well, no, and I had to be pretty darn still. I like your hair. Of course you do.
Yeah, we got moved. We went to the CIA, thing. Get back and
Isn't it festive? She must have something Christmassy going on, because she has something.
yes, yeah, everybody like, oh, you're gonna go for basketball. Now, they may contribute at some point in time, but I didn't hire for it. We are, yeah. Well, my whole family.
Well, see, the focus in mine here, I in mine, it's gonna be excited about this information. I have free tickets for the Seahawks game, so if you wanna go. What? It's already going. It's already going. Free ones, just pay for it. I didn't want to hear the details. You want it, Jeff? That would be no thank you. You guys want it? 49ers game? And I'll offer free tickets to the game, I'll take them if you guys want them, I don't want them.
Tickets to the 49ers game on Sunday. Free tickets. Brandon, free tickets.
I got free tickets to 49ers if you want them. Anybody? I can respond right now. Paul, you want the 49ers tickets?
I'm good, I'm good. Yeah, I'm
Sunday,
good.
Seahawks, free ones.
Does Chris have one to eat?
He already going.
Oh, he is.
No, thank you, but thank you.
You just can't even get rid of them. Jeez.
Wow. I went out there to see. You do? You were leaving. I was in one time.
For some reason, another time. Sunday, for some reason I did that. It's not fun. I said, no. No, I just Christmas.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. For those of you who have just joined us after closed session, I'm Jeff Conwell, Board President. I'd like to introduce my fellow trustees, Lisa Pelosi, Jeannie Kerr, Maria Haug, Julio Oguin, and our student representative, Miss Sammy Raven. Thank you all for being here tonight. Also like to introduce our excellent district staff, Superintendent Dr. Mary Lou Wilson. Good evening. Chief Business Official, Miss Andy Stubbs. Chief Academic and Human Resources Officer, Mr. Christopher Heller, and Executive Assistant to the Chief Academic Human Resources Officer, Ms. Melissa Hansen. We're delighted you're here this evening in person or viewing on Channel 27 or on our new YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will be available on our website at www.stalinaunified.org. In conjunction with items A and B in closed session earlier, the board received information and provided staff direction. At this point, would you please rise and join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are on to item number 6, which is public comment on open session items. So this is public comment on anything that is not on the agenda tonight. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Does anybody wish to say anything tonight on something that's not on the agenda? Okay, I'm looking. I don't see anybody. Great. Thank you. We are on to presentations. A performance by the St. Helena High School Choir and Jazz Band, Miss Aradana Gonzalez.
jazz band I'm joining, and we're gonna be playing 2 songs for it. Shaking hands.
Can we do that after the jazz band?
Sure.
So
So,
this group will have a seat.
yeah. Just wait outside or fingers watching it, or you can stay here. But just wait because you're gonna shake hands with the board members.
I know. We should move. Think we need to move back a little bit, or we need to?
Hearing is overrated.
You must be on the back for winter break. Nice.
Look at Jerry's back.
That's Dre's front.
And Andy's back.
I just want to kind of get a full, sounded good. Great job.
Which I gave back to you last week.
Yeah, it's the same. That was yours.
Yeah.
Ben just gave that to.
I gave it to him.
Okay.
So Betty's from too?
That's good. Okay, let it go.
This is why I'm not a math teacher.
David didn't have a,
Two pages. Yeah, try and flip my page. Never mind.
are you good?
Ready?
Tuning?
My favorite thing. We're gonna be playing 2
Thank you. Living.
That's right.
I know,
That's
better not
right.
get too animated.
That's right. That's okay. Okay, after the winter concert, what a fabulous job. Sammy, you're a student, you got to follow them.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm supposed to follow
I
that.
know. Think how the
but-
superintendent used to feel. I mean, with following
Yeah, I
you.
know.
Always. So,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, so instead of reporting on the school sites this month, I'm going to share a bit about my experience at the CSBA conference that I attended a few weeks ago. Not surprisingly, this was my first conference, and so I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I ended up having a really great time, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. So on Thursday, I attended 2 seminars, an ethnic studies one and one about student stress. And specifically in the student stress seminar, I learned about how schools and administrations handle stress surrounding more of like natural disasters or problems within the home of the student instead of like stress about school and testing and stuff like that. So the district that was making the presentation talked about a program that they had implemented called Focus that alerted the school if the student had had a traumatic event at home. So if the police were called about an event, they notified the school anonymously so that the child could get extra just like care at school, which I thought was a really good idea. And we have something similar to that through our Stop It app, but it's more within the school, and it helped me realize that we can just go beyond that and help students with their mental health and their stress levels. I also had the amazing opportunity of meeting and interacting with other student board representatives from across all of California. And we got together on Friday and spent the entire morning together doing like team building activities and just discussing our different districts and our struggles. And we discussed our unique school districts and the similar issues we had that we wanted to talk about and maybe give out ideas and stuff about how we could all help each other. The main topics that we brought up were about student safety, mental health, and school facilities. And it was really interesting to see how similar all of us were, and we were all able to relate to each other so easily, even though we were from all different parts of California and all different size schools, which was really cool. And then one of my favorite parts was attending the general sessions. The speakers were really motivational, and it was a really good way where like everybody was just in the same area paying attention to the same thing, since everybody is so separated during this different seminars. And the female speaker on the second day was definitely my favorite. And she talked about how racism and segregation is so rooted in our society that people are just so blind to it that they're feeding into it. And that can end up hurting kids as they grow up and go through school and education. And it's our job as school board members and educators to recognize the boundaries and then change them so that all students can grow up and receive the same support and education. So yeah, I had a really great time, and I strongly encourage the next school board representatives to attend the same convention in the future.
Thank you very much.
And President Conwell, just to note that finals week does start tomorrow, and so we may see Sammy leave a little bit earlier than she typically does, as we wish her well on finals. Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you very much, Sammy. See ya. Ciao. Just say it. That's right. Okay, we're on to item number 8, which is annual organizational meeting of the Board of Trustees. The San Luis Unified School District Governing Board is required to hold organizational meeting annually. During tonight's regular board meeting, following items will be addressed with regards to this meeting. So oath of office, election of the board president, board vice president, board clerk, and then adoption of the board meeting calendar for 2019. So I'm going to go to item number 8B, which is oath of office. And Maria, Lisa, and Julio, if you'll join me out front, and I'll administer the oath.
Everybody can talk. I just told her I couldn't bring my piece of paper.
Please raise your right hand. I. State your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support. And defend the Constitution. Of the United States. And the Constitution. Of the State of California. Against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. That I will. Bear true faith and allegiance. To the Constitution. Of the United States. And the Constitution. Of the State of California. And that I take this obligation. Freely. Without any mental reservation. For purpose of evasion. And that I will. Well and faithfully discharge. The duties upon which. I'm about to enter. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Okay, next item is election of the board president. Is there a nomination for board president?
I'll nominate Trustee Conwell for board president. Is there any other nominations?
And I'm willing to serve.
Thank you.
Any other nominations? Is there a motion to approve myself for the president or for board president?
Make a motion to elect board president Mr. Conwell.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. We're on to election of board vice president. Is there a nomination for board vice president?
I would like to nominate Maria Haug for vice president.
Are you willing to serve?
I am willing to serve.
Is there another nomination for vice president? Is there a motion to approve Trustee Haug for the position of board vice president?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. We're on to election of board clerk. Is there a nomination for the board clerk?
I would like to nominate Lisa Pelosi.
Are you willing to serve?
Yes.
Is there another nomination? Is there a motion to approve Trustee Pelosi for the position of board clerk?
I make the motion to approve Trustee Pelosi for board clerk.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, so now we'll switch seats here.
Okay. I'm just taking right here. Yeah, right. Okay. That's you.
There we go.
Your water. Thank you. That's your water, and I'll take my water. And I
No, she doesn't.
here's my piece. Thank you so much. You got you got the seat that really goes back. Watch out.
Okay, everybody getting used to their new spot? Okay, great. We're on to item 8, which is F, board to approve the board meeting calendar for 2019. Trustees, any questions about the dates that are proposed? Any conflicts? Anything anybody wishes to bring up? Is there a motion to approve the board meeting calendar for regular board meetings from January 2019 to December 2019?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we're on to item number 9 under student learning and achievement, presentation by English learners at St. Helena Primary School. Ms. Tamara Sanguinetti. Hello.
Oops, wait. Did I push? Am I on? Okay, good. I'm on. Okay, it's kind of. I feel like I'm kind of prone to falling, so I'm just trying to get my bearings here. Good evening, board members. First of all, I wanted to say I'm the last one to present about English learners, and I really enjoyed doing this presentation because it just allowed me. I mean, I've seen the information about the English learner roadmap. However, it allowed me to kind of really look deeply at my school and see what we're doing as far as the components of the roadmap. So, oh, there we go. That's a really nice looking presentation, Mr. Cinto. Okay, oops. Did I do that? Okay. Do I just give you a wink or something, or how do we do it? Oh, I have the clicker. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to wink anyway, Melissa, because I like you. Okay, so I just wanted to give a snapshot of St. Helena Primary School. We have 260 students, soon to have 261 this year, which our enrollment is growing. When I arrived at St. Helena Primary School, we had 237, so we've had an increase. We have 96 students who are English learners. Do you feel like I'm going to fall? And we have 106 students that are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and not just people know that the way we determine that is students who qualify for free and or reduced lunch. So that's just kind of a picture of who we are. And wait a minute, I guess I can just look at this. That'll be a workout. All right. Okay, so there are 4 pillars to, as you know, to the English language roadmap, or maybe you don't. This is just a quick review for me and for others. So principle 1, sorry, I'm having trouble with this microphone. I don't know why, but anyway. Okay, so principle 1 is assets-oriented and needs response. Principle 2 is intellectual quality of instruction and meaningful access. 3, systems conditions that support access, and 4, alignment and articulation. So if we look at principle 1, which is really focusing on assets-oriented and needs responsive school. And I was like, what is that? What does that really mean? And so what I took from it is that programs value and build upon the cultural and linguistics assets of students bring to their education in a safe and affirming school climate. And is there a video clip, do you see there, Melissa, or not? Because there's supposed to be, like, I sent it to Erica and it was a little link. Maybe not. Okay. Well, I will just talk to you a little bit about that. That, as you know, we have Spanish. All of our students receive 40 minutes of Spanish every week, but we're doing a pilot this year. And I wish you could see this. It's we have with our kindergartners are receiving 4 days of Spanish every week for a half hour. And Nadia Torres, our Spanish teacher, is really doing kind of an immersion program. She speaks I would say 90% Spanish. And so it really forces the kids, not forces, but encourages them to respond. And she does it in a way with lots of pictures and lots of songs. And so it's a pilot that we're trying. And I think it's really great to see our Spanish speakers take the lead in that class. Even though they're 5, it's nice to see kids that may not be that participatory in class be kind of the leader. So that's something that we're looking at and seeing how we can increase that. And when doing this presentation, it also allowed me to look at what we're doing, but also made me look a little deeper. And we've been talking about things that we can do more to build up on this roadmap. Okay, the next one is number 2, which is, principle 2, which is English learners engaging in intellectually rich and developmentally appropriate learning. And so one thing that I'm really proud of this year is that we've really been looking at the rigor of the instruction we do. And if you look at when we have designated ELDs, we have that where kids are actually learning about the English language. There are 3 language levels. There used to be 5, now there's 3. The first one is emerging, the middle one is expanding, and the third one is bridging. And kids are identified in those categories by the yearly test they take, the LPAC, and that determines language levels. So I wanted to just give you a quick example of the learning goal for the week. And what the teachers have done is they plan like in units. And so for this particular week, the learning goal was students will explain the characteristics of Cesar Chavez. And so that's what we really want them to do. But if you look at the 3 different levels, emerging being, I can draw pictures and words to compare and contrast the historical people using a Venn diagram. Still rigorous, doesn't mean it's so dependent on them speaking, but they're still doing rigorous tasks, cognitively challenging tasks. And the middle, I can use noun phrases to compare the historical people using a Venn diagram. And then the bridging, I can write noun phrases using adjectives to compare and contrast. So you can see that kids are all heading toward that end learning goal, but they're doing it different ways and still getting that cognitively challenging learning that's going on. So we've really worked hard on that this year. That's one of our foci, I guess you would say. Okay, next is the number 3 is systems condition that support access. So we have also been working with West Ed in also with trying to raise the level of DOK for our English learners and really for all of our students. And so, in fact, tomorrow we're going to be working with the coach, and we're really looking at teaching our English learner about text features. For example, when you write an opinion writing or when you read an opinion piece, there are certain features that you need to look at, and there are certain features that we need to teach. We can't just expect kids to know that. So we've been looking at the learning task and looking at what kind of linguistic supports or scaffolds we can give kids to get to those higher level thinking. And one of the things that I hope we get to do a little presentation on this. One of the things that we've adopted at our school is called SMART. And when anyone is teaching a lesson, what's been really great about it, because what we're trying to do is raise the level of engagement as well. We want kids to be tracking us. And so if you say SMART, if you're a Spanish teacher, if you're a PE teacher, the kids will just look like that. And they know that they're sitting up, they're looking at the speaker, and wherever the teacher walks around the classroom, they're tracking that person. And so it really just ensures that the level of focus for students is really on. So that's something that we've adopted school-wide. And the last principle is alignment. And we've been doing some really great work with the elementary school this year. A couple years ago, we prioritized math standards, meaning that not that we're not going to teach all math standards, but these are what we call our promise standards, the ones that we promise that all kids are going to have. And what we did is we looked at which standards will provide leverage, there's just a whole process for doing that. So this year, we started the process with our English language arts standards, and specifically in reading, informational, and literature. So how the process went is we started in grade levels and looked at those 2 sets of standards, and we prioritized them. Then we did it as a TK2 school, and then at our last vertical articulation, Tanya Pearson led us in the articulation. So what you can see is starting from kindergarten all through 5th grade, it's the same standard, and it just shows what it looks like at each level. And what's really cool about that, it just shows our interdependence on one another. And the fact that, we are talking about things, 3rd grade teachers are telling us, 2nd grade teachers, this is what we need from you. You need to bring this to us. And that, we take that very seriously. And it really, shows how dependent we are on each other in making for the success of these children. And I think that's it. So, any questions?
Is there any public comment?
Okay.
Trustees, any questions or comments?
I have one question.
Please.
You had mentioned the LPAC was given out annually, correct?
Yes.
And then what the other assessments are done, you said there were many assessments done weekly, or?
Those are like with our actual English language development lessons.
Okay.
We do those check-ins at the end of the week. We have learning targets and we do those check-ins weekly because it's too far to wait, just for that one yearly thing. Yes. Julio?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, say thank you first off for looking at the roadmap and looking at it so deeply to see how you can make those changes, because I think it is important that we see it. We see the policy, and sometimes some people might not understand what that means, but to kind of explain it at the school level, I think it's important for parents and staff to kind of see what that means at the school level. So I appreciate that you guys are taking the time and that they're getting more Spanish as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, St. Gwyneth. We are on to item number 9B, which is the monthly presentation of the 2018-2019 Local Control Accountability Plan LCAP goals. Mr. Chris Heller, please.
Thank you. As we do every month, we bring to you an update of a component of our local control accountability plan. And this month, drum roll, these are our three overarching goals within the plan. And this month, we're going to provide an update on district mathematics. And you can see all the other topics that we've covered. And we'll have a couple more in preparation for our draft LCAP in May. So this month we'll have a different flavor of presentation, but I would like to introduce some of the initiatives that the district has focused on since we started the Math Task Force in the last 3 years, and taking a look at how we can improve mathematic instruction and delivery. And the first point is, the Math Task Force continues to meet and focus on data and instructional practices. The board has approved intervention teachers at the secondary level, both at the high school last year and at the middle school this year. We are continuing to use our measures of academic progress and our ICAs, the interim comprehensive assessments, to inform our instruction with timely, we're not calling them assessments, but timely measures of student progress throughout the year. So it informs the teachers of areas where students might have some deficiencies or areas where we have some strength, and we'll talk a little bit further in next steps about what that looks like. And of course, last year we adopted a new curriculum at the high school and big ideas for mathematics, and that curriculum has been well received by staff. Prior to this year, district staff, Mary Allen, specifically created an intervention plan to address areas of need. And we'll bring that back in January to give you an update and inform our progress and areas of focus within that intervention plan. And also the governing board received a data presentation in November where we looked at several components of data within mathematics and other areas. And at that time, we noticed that our CASP data did not represent significant growth in mathematics. And we've had several conversations about that, both internally and externally, about what that looks like. But also in conversations with our principals, they also felt that there were other key points of data that reflect progress in mathematics that they are seeing. And so to that end, what I asked principals to do is to prepare a couple slides that they can share successes in data and progress that they've made at their sites in mathematics. So with that, prepping them to come up to the stage, first being Tamara. The primary school will present their data first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to say something about the MAP scores. We look at the second grade, of course, but kindergarten and first grade, we really don't especially look at kindergarten until January, because let me just say that this is how people use the mouse sometimes. And it's a dragging and dropping, and so the actual structure of taking the tests detracts from actually getting accurate results. So we use other measures, particularly in kindergarten and first grade. So I'm highlighting second grade tonight, not because I'm embarrassed of the scores, but I just don't really have ones that I'm ready to share yet. Okay, so if we look at second grade, the fall 2018 RIT score. Have we talked about the RIT score, Mary? Are you guys familiar with the RIT score? It's part of the MAP. Anyway, so in the fall of 2018, wait a minute, is that supposed to be fall of 2019? Yes, it is. Oh my goodness.
You're 18 right
Oh. Okay, right. Okay. Gosh. Okay. Anyway, you can see that the comparison of the scores have gone up significantly. And in second grade, this year, 77% of the second grade students are projected to meet or exceed their expected goal. So right now, 77% of our kids are on track to meeting or exceeding the goal. And then lastly, 82% of our second graders made growth from first grade to second grade. So we're really looking at growth. That's our main focus in the primary school. I mean, obviously for everyone, but that's what we're really looking toward, is significant growth. And I feel like the Go Math, our teachers are really understand deeply now. And more so than that, they really understand the work that they're doing in their PLCs, have gone really deep into deconstructing those math standards. So our teachers are looking at those sub-skills within the math standards, and they use the MAP data to really target specific skills that kids need. So we have seen a lot of growth in all of our kids, but I just wanted to highlight the second grade because those are the ones at this point are more accurate. I'd be happy to share other ones later in the year.
Excellent. So following suit with MAP as well. At this point, we just actually finished our complete MAP math, so that's measures of academic progress survey, last week. At the time that I submitted this, we had most of the kids had completed that assessment for the math, and we have 79%. So looking at growth, if you notice that, we would see what's great about this assessment tool is there's two things that show extremely powerful data, is that if students themselves can see and track their own progress, and teachers as well can see over time, and they are able to reference and notice quickly if a student that's high, maybe they seem high in that grade level, but if they've already been a lot higher in second or first grade, then we're not content with, say, just a proficient student in third grade. We want to see their progress over time, as Tamara was mentioning, that we have our second grade scores, third, and going into fourth grade or fifth or whatever grade the students are in. And we're able to see and drill down into how many are making growth and progress. At that, so listing here, we have progress, and then those that have the same score would mean that they just have the same score that they took from the previous test. What's nice about the assessment is they all are started. It references just kind of changes as students go through the test, and we're able to start them at the level that they ended the last test at, and then it continues to go until they go to about half right, half wrong, as I've mentioned in past presentations as well. So what we're really interested in seeing is obviously growth, and so, just looking at the 79, 66, and 72% of kids have made growth. But now drilling down as teachers, since we completed it last week, why are students staying the same? And certainly who are the students who have gone down for some reason? So we'll be looking into that as we look to really fine tune our interventions and work to support the students as well. And the next slide, these two slides
go in conjunction with this particular student. So this is a student who's an English language learner, and he's worked since 3rd grade up through 4th grade, and then the final score was his most recent 5th grade math test or math assessment with the measures of academic progress. He's proficient at this point in that green band, so it's been really exciting to watch a student just take hold. And fall was the one that you would see the second to the last is yellow, and he's gone up to green. But what is great is this year, as a new tool, we're able to use this survey to actually differentiate and target the exact next steps that every student is ready to take with their math progress. So along with that chart, these other two, the one on the left is one that we really look at both of those colored progress measures. The one on the left to me is super exciting. It shows that this particular student from the fall to the winter made 95%. He's at the amount of growth above the mean would be the average amount of growth that students across the nation are making, and 50% would be about halfway. He's at 95th percentile of how much growth and how steep his growth cycle was, and then at 75th percentile of achievement. And so there's quadrants that we can look at. On the very right, you'll see quadrant, he's at high growth, high achievement. We want to see high growth for all students, and ideally high achievement as well. But it's particularly high, high growth, low achievement, we at least that high growth measure. But the next one on the right is where this new learning and the new program is coming in. This is from a program called Edmentum, and it's an online learning program that connects to the exact map test. And then what Tamara was mentioning about the RIT, that scores actually for every strand of math. So the algebra, the numeric operations, geometry, fractions, all have underneath at the very bottom what that particular RIT score is for that strand. And in a student who's 5th grade with proficient in 5th grade, you can see in some areas, algebra, he's at 6th grade level. There are a few areas where the next item that he's ready to learn is a 4th grade standard, and then 5th grade. And so within those levels, those particular levels are pretty high in 4th grade, but it just shows that it's a really well-adjusted assessment that now can be used more concretely. So a student is able to see 4 next items that they're ready to learn, and then have a little mini video with some assignments and some assessment to see if the person has learned. What's nice is that this is actually a tool that teachers are using to be in the classroom in a differentiated way. They quickly realize they're not sending it home for homework, because this is like the edge. It's with the zone of proximal development. It's like the edge of what they're ready to do next. And so that needs to not be done in isolation at home. But it's in classrooms in small groups. We're using it 30 minutes or more a week, at least 30 minutes. And the gains have been promised to be substantial. So we'll look to see, and I'm really looking forward to see how this helps. Students are able to do that, and then the teachers, they have 2 opportunities to to achieve that particular lesson. And if they don't do it in 2 lessons, it's flagged for the teacher, and then the teacher knows that they really need to help that person and support their learning, so they don't just struggle on the same thing over and over and not make the growth. Teachers are also able to see their whole class profile, and to also, to also see and track the progress that they're making. And then instructional practices. So this is more, what are we working to continue to do and to add to our program. We are working at every grade level is doing more frequent performance tasks that have complex application of mathematics. That is in our interventions. We're doing complex multi-step problems with real-life applications in the classroom as well. Spiral review. So instead of just learning each subject or each part of math and moving forward, they've all built in some weekly and some daily spiral reviews of what they had learned from the past, with the idea that they will then now have more enduring understanding over time, with the golden ring being the CAST test at the end of the year as well. We also, at this point, all grade levels have 2 staff members at least conducting before or after school interventions. And We have moved into also having some of that intervention during the school day so that it's not just before or after school. So in 4th grade, for example, they not only have before school with Mr. McCulley, who's drilling into some of those essential standards, but also Ms. Condilis comes on Friday and she's looking just at the students that didn't meet their SMART goal standards and having that group stay with her while she continues to work with them. The next week, they test at the end of that exact session. The next week, she only takes the ones that still haven't showed that progress. They keep working on it with Mr. McCulley. By Friday, they're either with her or they're not. And so it's just like a tag team, which has been really well received. 3rd grade, we're also about to move to have some of our 4th and 5th grade push-in intervention to just drill into 3rd grade. After break, each 3rd grade teacher is going to have one extra teacher within their classroom for the whole math period 5 days a week. So that was our targeted grade level that needed the most support right now based on our MAP scores as well. We have our intervention specialists, Ms. Davis and Ms. Sanders and Ms. Tague in each of those classrooms, or will be having them. Then we also have our community tutors. There are some, we have about 15 that have been past teachers, school psychologists, just exceptional members of society, and they're in our classrooms once or more per week, looking either to support math or language arts with targeted students. Not the lowest, but some that are kind of on the cusp and need that extra support and attention has been our target. Yep. And then just in general, working hard with the language of math, with problem answer statements, and just the structure of how we're doing the complex problems is happening across the board as well.
Hello. So we are right in the midst of doing our winter map testing right now, so I had to kind of juggle around to look at the data in a way that would show if we're making growth, because I don't really have a full benchmark assessment yet. So what I did was I thought, okay, since I can't go fall to winter yet, I'm interested in looking at, did we make growth from spring to fall, and are we ahead of where we needed to be? So the way I looked at it is I said, okay, in 6th grade, a year's growth is 7.7 points from fall to fall. That's what you would expect to get. So we're already 1.8 points headed in that direction, if that makes sense to you. I don't know how I know it's a weird way to explain it, but as I said, I didn't really have that next step of data, and this actually was quite encouraging. So for 7th grade, a year's growth is 6 points, and they've already gone 3.1 points closer to the norm. And 8th grade, 1.8, and a year is only 4.6, because I think I've mentioned before, but as the grade levels get higher, the amount of progress in terms of RIT points gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's a huge difference. Probably in 3rd grade, it's way, way more than 4.6 points. And last year, we looked at our data, and Mrs. Carnes came to me and said, I'm really concerned. There's this group of kids that have been persistently struggling from always. Like, they have never scored more than a 1 on any of the CASP or any state tests. They have not made growth. They're emotionally beaten down, and they just feel at this point that they're never going to succeed. And we talked a long time about what was the right thing to do, because we want to be really cautious about not tracking kids. But we also realize that 8th grade is kind of the last real chance to get kids to a point where they can start high school with some sense of that they can do this. And we really are concerned when we have 8th graders that have this long history of struggling, most of whom came in with severe language issues and also learning disabilities in some cases. And it's going to be really a hard thing for them in high school if they don't have an attitude of, I can at least make some progress here. So we were able to do some shifting around, and we took a smaller group of students, and Mrs. Carnes worked really hard to develop an alternative curriculum that's the same standards, approached in a different way. So what she really did unintentionally, but we've thought about it more now, is she essentially created a math class, a designated English class for math. So just as we have students who need additional support in English when they're coming, what we really found is that this group of kids, what they needed was that kind of targeted support focused at math, because math is so much more heavily language oriented than it used to be. So she didn't really intend that to be what happened, but it is. So what she did was approach math in a more non-linguistic, more hands-on way with games. And you can see the expected growth on the CASP is 15 points, 66 points. One kid went way down, but you can see on the map went up. So clearly they did not have a good day because they're doing well right now. So it shows that sometimes CASP scores are not the, it's that day. But we had a student who grew 115 points on the CASP. 15 is expected, 1.5. It just blows my mind, that kind of growth. And on the map, 4.6 is expected in the year, and the range was from 19 to -1. And you can see that although normally the CASP and the map are pretty well aligned, there's some kids, especially those kids who struggle, that one day is better than another day, and so they're not as well aligned because they tend to be a little more inconsistent as they're learning and as they're overcoming their own negative feelings about academics and math. But what we wanted to look at was, did that make a difference in high school? That's ultimately what we want to do. We want kids to go to high school and be successful and graduate and go on to college and career. So was that experiment class that we tried last year, did it help? And if you can see on the far right, those are their grades after the first quarter in high school math. And these are kids who have failed every math class. The green is where in 8th grade, that's where we created the class. So kids went from D's and F's. And Mrs. Carnes did not lower the standards at all. It was the exact same standards taught in a different approach. And we really wanted to know, will it transfer? And I can't even tell you, I wanted to cry. And Deb came in too. Both of us were like teary. Oh, it worked. Oh my God, look at that. It's really exciting. So we're looking at pursuing that idea for next year. Continuing from last year is the department meetings that we've discussed, placing kids in advanced class, not willy-nilly, but really cautiously. That has also been incredibly effective. We've had 100% success in terms of, are the kids still succeeding really well by all measures if they're in an advanced class? And it has been very effective. Math teachers are continuing to work with the Carnegie coach using standard-based grading to better assess and address student progress. I'm not sure if I've talked about this, but our math teachers, if they give a test that might cover 2 or 3 standards kind of all mixed in, the students don't get a single grade. It's broken down by each individual standard, and they get a grade for each different part. And then if they don't do well on an individual section, they can reassess on just that part, so that they can make sure that they get that. And they're not just discouraged because they might say, overall, I might not have done that well, but look, I got 100% on this. I get this part. And it's also so much more effective data from a teacher's point of view than just a random C, which doesn't mean that you're a C across the board. It might mean that you completely get this and don't get that at all. So it's far more effective. I didn't put it on here, but we also are continuing to do after-school tutoring, and all of the math teachers give 2 days of their lunch up a week. Each week they give 2 days to students to come in and get extra help and support. And then this year, some things we're doing differently is the new Carnegie text is fully implemented. The teachers are trained. They've been working on that. Last year was the first year we had just started it with training. We have a new bilingual resource teacher, and she's co-teaching both a 6th and an 8th grade math class, and she's also part of the math department meeting because we're really interested in this idea of the impact of language on students' achievement in math. There's this huge blob of data that shows the impact that that has, and so we're really trying to think what can we do differently to overcome the language deficit that is holding kids back in mathematics. Also, 2 out of 3 grade level classes in 6th grade and 8th grade have an additional teacher. At every grade level, students are strategically placed. And the reason I put that is last year, this was kind of an evolving process, and it was where they belonged. So the kids the kids who needed the most support weren't necessarily getting it because it was where the schedule allowed a teacher to be placed. We did do some shifting, but we didn't want to move a whole bunch of kids. So this year we were really strategic about placing kids in classes where they would need the extra teacher to be there. And then teachers are working to create a 6th grade intervention curriculum based on what we did last year in 8th grade. And also using the interim block assessments, which are like mini pieces of the CASP, and release test questions throughout the year to help better analyze the data and prepare kids for taking the test in the actual same style. The map has many of the same tools, but it's not identical. So, high school.
Okay, I think you've heard a lot about the map. So, so the scores here, the challenge for the high school is you can't break it down by course. That's something I'm working with Mary Allen on. So when you look at 9th grade, you're looking at students all the way from pre-integrated 1 to integrated 3. There's a couple of 9th graders in integrated 3. Same thing for every single course there. So it's from a course perspective and which standards to focus on. It's not as usable from a grade level, but that's not a report available at this point in time in terms of the specific course. Either way, when you drill down further to the student reports, it kind of tells you where the same thing that all the other principals have shown. But as you see, positive trending on the whole grade level, which I think is pretty remarkable considering the very place where kids end up coursework wise. One thing I wanted to note is as much as we are a unified district, we have basically a 40% transient rate at the high school in terms of incoming students. So in looking at 11th grade CAS scores, you see from 2015 8th grade CAS achievement rates. So RLS is basically 64% of our student population at that point in time, with a CASP achievement rate at 29% at the time. Howell Mountain with a 0% achievement, and Pope Valley no results. Granted, Pope Valley only represent 1 student in that cohort. But what that tells you is that we made tremendous growth, actually, because when you have cohorts around 100, each kid basically represents a percent. So even though we might have taken a dip from 50 to 43, which represents 7%, you're looking at approximately 9 students. But given where they came from, knowing that the challenge of mathematics over time, you would expect it to get less because math gets much harder. So I would say that growth is actually pretty notable, especially considering 28% other students had no experience with the exam, given that they came from either Catholic school, homeschool, or Montessori school. So when looking at it from a cohort perspective in the shifting mathematics and being given different leveled instruction over time, I see huge growth. So continued support, what are we continuing to do? Obviously, a common collaboration period. That's something that the high school has committed to for, Mr. Farrell, the last 4 or 5 years. All math teachers pushing into non-math classes, avid study skills, directed studies, twice weekly after-school math lab, math student survey, map assessments with additional training, CAS practice tests. These are all things that we've done in the past. Math teachers are now, these are things new this year, and again, not to overwhelm, but we have a brand new curriculum that the students are appreciating. We're definitely not getting the level of pushback that we had that you guys can remember that I prefer not to go into. All math classes have an intervention teacher. This year we were able, with some creative staffing, if you remember last year we had 1 period that had no teacher available support because just in the number of math teachers we had and the sections which were allocated where, but in assigning Mr. Clutie, who's actually a resource teacher with a lot of background in mathematics, he actually pushes into Mr. Farrell's pre-integrated 1 class, who has, to be honest with you, 3 students at a first grade math level. Mr. Farrell's very familiar with the Edmentum curriculum because he uses it for his class, because he's working to make gains for those students who are at such a low level, because our goal is to get them to, post-secondary education or careers. All 11th grade students will be assessed using the interim comprehensive assessment regardless of what math course they're in. That's going to be something new to us this year. Our teachers will calibrate their scoring and grade it themselves. Mr. Fetters and I will be facilitating the test. Additional resources have been provided and utilized for our students. Oh, that's what I was just talking about. Pre-integrated 1 period is also supported by, just said that too, sorry. Math department chair attendance at CASP Institute. He and I went a couple of months ago. It was a good eye-opener for him with other people in California. And dual enrollment, obviously we've talked about that. And this year, targeted math intervention using previous year's data and achievement results. So, we didn't just go into this year blindly. Some of the students have said, oh, we're not getting support. Well, that's because we've strategically designed it to support the kids with the greatest need, as we should. And that's it.
Thank you. So, in concluding and talking about next steps, we have the capability through the Math Task Force to do some things with our instruction. We have some very interested teachers who want to continue working on mathematics, and to that end, Mary Allen and I are having grade level discussions and school site discussions where we're going to send representatives to the lower grade to take a look at their instruction and bring back information to their site to better inform about the preparation that students are receiving at the grade level before theirs. So that work will continue in the Math Task Force. Again, we're going to continue working with our interim assessments, our interim benchmarks, and we're going to continue to provide staff development based on staff needs. We do have a request for some teachers to attend some different conferences that are available to continue to strengthen and improve our math instruction. And with that, any questions for myself or the principals?
First of all, public comment on anything. Trustees, questions, comments?
My question was just at the elementary school, Tanya, the intervention before and after school. I know that you mentioned about the students then working with Miss Condilis at the end of the week, but for are other students just identified, or is it open to all who feel like they need support? How is that working?
Yeah, no, they're invited to it based on the progress and what they're showing with their results and their needs. And it is flexible based on, and actually what we have, it's about 3 to 4 week cycles depending on the complexity of the standard. So it's a particular standard, and we're using ones that actually are like some of the more involved multi-step word problems that involve double-digit multiplication, for example. And so we have charts that will show the standard and then a pre-test and a post-test within those 3 to 4 week targeted instruction. And then back to a blank slate, work on something new, notice to see who needs the next targeted set of intervention. And it's purposely a flexible group, but they stay intact for a set number of, and it's twice a week. So it's Tuesdays and Thursdays that we're doing the intervention. And then over that course of 6 to 8 extra sessions, wanting to see what, and we have maybe 1s or 2s on a 6-point assessment, then they end up with 5s or 6s. So seeing a lot of really targeted growth per student. Every now and then there might be someone that doesn't have as much attendance, but typically it's students coming, they're committed, coming from 8 to 8:25 or 8 to 8:35 and really taking that at heart. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just wanted to comment about the elementary math and how it is important that you guys are looking at it from the linguistic angle, because I just helped tried to help my 5th grader, and I had to do the walk away move. Like I knew what I was doing, and I was like, wait. And I had to actually kind of look at different resources to help them, but it's just way different than the way we were taught. So I think it is a great approach to be, because it's like a long, extended, complex word problem. It's not just figure out one thing. So
they learn to circle important numbers, underline parts, even figure out how to break down the question itself and write the statement so that they know what they're looking for. Yeah. We have some great video tutorials and stuff that help with sometimes with parents as well.
No, I figured it out, but just at the end I was like, okay, that makes sense. But just looks different. So it's good that there's support, and that obviously like at the RLS they're looking at the bilingual, because it is hard if you don't even understand what they're asking. So.
Absolutely.
You know, I wanted just to say thank you for the site principals for coming and sharing yours specifically. It's really important to hear all of the very positive news that's coming by, and coming to us tonight. And I do understand that all of this takes a lot of time, it takes energy, it takes collaboration, and a lot of determination from all of the staff. So I truly appreciate that. And I also want to give our students are also part of that in learning and things, where I really appreciate each one of you saying that it's our students, if they don't feel that they can do, then it just keeps on getting worse. So I appreciate that's the focus as well, is getting our terms to having our students feel positive about what they're learning and moving forward. So thank you very, very much. Thank you.
I just have a question about the middle school. You said there was looking at a 6th grade intervention math class. Is the 8th grade intervention math class continuing this year, and will it continue in the future?
We are looking at a way to make it continue. So we were able to do it last year because last year was the final year where we were not tightening down the number of kids that were advanced. And so as a result, Mrs. Carnes had a very a full class of advanced students and then 2 other classes. So we were able to create a little class. Right now, the advanced classes from now on is the trend, is a small class itself. So if she has 2 classes that are that small, her other classes would have 40 kids in them. And so we're Deborah and I are putting our creative scheduling heads together because we do have another group of kids that really would benefit from that. And it is challenging because she has a period where maybe she could do that, but then where would the kids go when they normally would have been in a math class in the morning? They don't have anywhere to go. So it's complex, but we are really interested in finding a way to make it work because the data shows that it was so effective.
Yes, and congratulations on the results. That was really impressive in the intervention. And thank you very much for sharing. Appreciate that. We're on to item 9C, which is information on 2018 California dashboard. Ms. Mary Allen, please.
Well, I think I have the shortest presentation tonight, so that's a good thing. They've been long. So as we've had multiple conversations on how the state has changed their accountability system into multiple measures, this is going to be on the school dashboard. Every year, the state now, from this point on, will be looking at least 10 different measures, and we now have a new look to the dashboard. This judges in a good way because it provides support, but it looks at all the districts in the state of California on 10 different areas, and then looking at that data, which I'll share in a minute, deciding who needs some additional support, what they call targeted support. And that, that's a good thing. It's not punitive at this point. We're not just looking at one measure. We're looking at multiple measures to see how we're doing. These are the results of St. Helena, and also just knowing that the dashboard is user-friendly, and I encourage the board to, I'm not going to get into it tonight, but I encourage you to go into the dashboard and play with it a little bit. And for any of the public that's out there, certainly go in. We do have a link on the board doc, so you can go in and look at the dashboard. So this is the new improved look. They call these baseball cards with a gauge. So you can look just briefly at some of the state measures. They're looking at chronic absenteeism. Again, we want to be in the green or the blue, which are the good colors to be in, and we don't want to be down in the red. Each area that you can see, so if I'm looking at chronic absenteeism, you can see we're in the green. When you look within the green, it drills down even further because there's a low green, a mid green, and a high green. And we just need to see growth. So they're evaluating change in status. They're going from one year to the next, and that gives us our color coding. So you can see at a glimpse, we have suspension. We're in the orange zone, and the reason we're in there is because we had a change from one year to the next. Unfortunately, we had some students last year that ended up getting suspended for some pretty significant issues, and again, we're such a small population that 10 students can definitely up our percentages, and it did. The one nice thing about suspension, if there's a nice thing, is that it's equitable across all races. There was not one particular race that was targeted for the district. It was across all of our gender, all of our ethnicity. English language learners, the LPAC was just given for the first time last year, so we won't have a color code until the end of this year, so they can do the change in status. And then graduation rate, you can see we're doing really well. College and career, that includes the CTE pathway, that includes AP test results, dual enrollment, a variety of factors to see how well prepared our students are for college and career beyond high school graduation. We are in the blue zone, and that's great. English language arts and mathematics now include 11th grade in our scoring. It used to be just 3rd through 8th grade. 11th grade is now pooled in there with their scores. So English language arts, we're in the green, and we know we've been focusing on this all night. Our mathematics are in the yellow range. This gives you a good visual. Red, what groups. All of this, just for the folks that are listening or watching out in the audience, everything that's on the dashboard is what we address within the LCAP. These are our matrices, some of our major matrices that we look at and we address in the LCAP to create action plans. So in the red, you can see our suspension, and underneath there, you'll see a subgroup. So that's socioeconomically disadvantaged. Socioeconomically disadvantaged students are our students that are free and reduced, parent level of education, foster youth, and homeless youth. In the orange, you can see, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but you can see the subgroups that fall under that for the orange, and you can see the title. We have chronic absenteeism, suspension, as well as math, and then the yellow and green and blue. So this kind of gives you just a snapshot of how our district's doing. Any questions? Again, this is short and sweet because we've gone over this so many times, but I think it's a good thing to go into because it is definitely our evaluation measure for the state of California.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? Trustees, any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are on to item number 10A, which is information and request for approval to open a window for participation in the state authorized retirement incentive for classified non-management staff and adopt resolution 18-16. Miss Andy Stubbs, please.
Thank you. This is a resolution opening a window for retirement for non-management classified employees in order to offer a 2-year retirement incentive. And the board approved a similar resolution for non-management certificated staff during the October 11th, 2018 board meeting. And so the MOU with CSEA is actually on the consent agenda this evening. This resolution would establish a window of April 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2019 with a retirement letter from classified non-management staff to be received by February 4th, 2019. And so I would ask that the board consider approval of resolution number 18-16.
Is there any public comment on this resolution? Trustees, any questions or comment? Is there a motion to adopt resolution 18-16 to open a window for participation in the state authorized retirement incentive for classified non-management staff as presented?
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're on to item number 10B, which is consideration of approval of new AVID MTSS paraprofessional positions at the RLS and St. Helena High School. Mr. Chris Heller, please.
Great, thank you. The board may recall at the November meeting, I was given authorization to proceed and develop a job description for the AVID MTSS paraprofessional position. In doing some research and working with the site principals, we came up with a job description that is attached this evening for review, but not for approval, even if we got to that point. It's just for information only. Board had provided direction to investigate 5 or 6 hours within that position, and 2 factors came up that determined that it would be best to move forward with the 6-hour position as a recommendation. One is that within position control, we want to offer positions that are similar, that have similar hours moving forward, so we have alignment in those types of jobs, so we don't have paraprofessionals that are at 6 hours and some that are at 5. We want it to be consistent. And also a recommendation from the site principals that 6 hours would be able to encompass more of the school day, depending on where AVID were to fall within their master schedule. Sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's in the afternoon. And if you recall, these 2 positions, if approved, would travel in tandem. So we want to make sure that we offer the best range for services throughout the day. So as I mentioned, if approved, these 2 positions would be a cost of a little less than $96,000 added to the budget for the next 2019-20 school year. Again, these positions would travel in tandem and work together. And the job description, as I mentioned, is not up for approval tonight. We still need to work with that with our classified unit members, and I'll bring it back at a later date. So at this point, I would ask the board to consider approving the 2 AVID MTSS positions and the associated costs for the 1920 school year.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions or comments?
You know, I just have a question. So the budget increase of $95,584, does that include the benefits as well, the employee benefits as
Yes.
well? Yes. Okay. And it would be like a 6/10, or it's a 0.6 FTE. Is that correct?
It would be, well, it's 6.5 hours. So it's roughly.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ask it that way. I was just so, but it would be this. It would be the same percentage for the benefits as it is as the
other paraprofessionals. Yes. One thing I failed to mention is that in developing this job description, we aligned it with the Para 3 instructional support position that is available at the primary and elementary school. So it had a similar template and feel. So that's an elementary position, and this would be the secondary position. So it's an equivalent. And when you look at those 2 jobs.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Question. You mentioned that you worked with the site principals. I'm just curious, where were the existing AVID coordinators? Did they get to review this as well to see if this falls in alignment with what they need as well?
Short answer is yes.
Okay.
We've had conversations with the AVID coordinators.
And they seem to be in support of this job description?
They have not looked at the job description, but
Okay.
they're in support of having consistent representation in their class. Because every year, and I have to say, we've been very happy with the AVID tutors in the past and present. So there's
Right.
nothing with the AVID tutors that we have. What we're looking for is consistency, because every year we do have an issue with consistency in the position.
Okay.
And so it'd be nice to have consistency. Ultimately, the idea of an AVID tutor is to get a college tutor. We cannot get college tutors. We've tried this many, many times, and we cannot due to their schedule and our schedule. Then we tried paying for AVID tutors. We could not get AVID tutors with just payment. And then we added the caveat of let's see if we can get some folks that would be interested if we provided the opportunity of bringing their son or daughter here. And we were able to get avid tutors. All of them have been wonderful, but we've had to play with this from year to year, and it's never a consistent thing.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Actually, one question. So does that, there's going to be travel involved for this job, correct? Between the two schools?
Yes.
And so was that also taken into account in the budget?
The mileage potentially?
The mileage, yes.
It would be a relatively small amount. I think it can probably be absorbed in the figures that I shared there.
Sorry, one other thing just popped into my head. So if creating two paid positions, that definitely provides, obviously with the time you're proposing, covers with the amount of tutors that we currently have and have had on staff.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Do I have a motion to approve the new AVID MTSS paraprofessional positions and related budget as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We're on to item number 11, which is the consent agenda. This covers items that are deemed as far as consent. And trustees, any questions about any of the items that wish to be pulled and talked about separately?
No.
No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the sorry. Is there anyone who wishes public comment on the consent items? Nope. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone wish to make a motion about the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. We're down to item number 12A, which is public hearing and review of Resolution 18-15 regarding accounting of developer fees for the 2017-18 fiscal year. Miss Andy Stubbs. Oh, and I gotta do this. The public hearing for the 2017-18 accounting of developer fees is now open at 7:39. During this public hearing, comments should be limited to 2017-18 accounting of developer fees. It is our goal to hear from all who wish to be heard. We now invite members of the audience to address the Board of Trustees on the 2017-18 accounting developer fees only. Anybody wish to address the board? The public hearing is now closed at time 7:40. Do the trustees have any questions on the 2017-18 developer fee? Oh, I'm sorry. Stubbs, did you wish to discuss this?
I'll just make a few remarks if I might.
Please, thank you. It was going so easily.
This is our annual resolution reporting accounting of developer fees for the prior year, and it's presented for information and public hearing tonight with consideration of approval during the January meeting. The resolution shows the amount of fees that we collected in 2017-18. If we want to open that up. And then cursor down a little bit. Next page. There we go, and then scroll through there. There we go. And so here we see the amount of fees collected and interest earned. On the subsequent pages, you'll note that you'll see the beginning and ending balances. And in 17-18, our expenditures in developer fees totaled $300,000, which was toward the elementary school kitchen and modernization project per board approval. And then we're also required every 5 years to do an annual plan. And so just to be on the safe side, we just do a 5-year plan every year and continually update it. And so the 5-year plan, as you're looking through your board packet, will also show another $400,000 budgeted towards the kitchen cafeteria remodel project in current year 2018-19, all of which has been board approved. And then in the out years, you'll see some of the proposed projects that we've been discussing that don't yet have board approval, and some developer fees earmarked towards those projects. And with that, I can open it up to questions, and I'll come back for consideration of approval next month.
Trustees, any questions? And just a reminder, this is information only and public hearing, so it will return back in January for action. So we'll see it again next month. We're on to item number 12B, which is to approve the 2018-19 first interim report. Miss Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. And so this is our second report for 2018-19. First, we had the original budget report in June, and then this is our first interim, which reflects expenditures from July 1st through October 31st, 2018. And I'm pleased to report that we have demonstrated here a balanced budget in the current and subsequent fiscal years, and so we're able to file a positive certification for 18-19. And so this slide here just depicts kind of the timing of our reporting periods during the year. This table shows our fund balance compared with the original budget report. And so at first interim, you can see that our total combined restricted and unrestricted revenue total about $35 million, with expenditures totaling almost $34,800,000, and we can see a surplus to the fund balance that's in the pink there for the unrestricted portion, and a large part of that would be the governor's one-time Prop 98 revenues. This summarizes changes in revenue, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail here in this table. With our property taxes, we have seen a property tax increase compared with 17-18 of about $984,000. We budgeted for a 3% increase. Property taxes came in at 6.43%. We also had some other local control funding formula sources changes there with the $36,000 that you can see. With federal revenues, we're now able to budget new Title IV student support academic enrichment dollars, and we'll be reporting on those at a subsequent board meeting. And then we had some other small adjustments to federal funding. With state revenues, the board may recall that we are now we're required to demonstrate the state's contribution towards CalSTRS in our books, and so we reflect the state revenue and then the state expenditure. So it's kind of an in and out that shows up on our books, but we had to increase that by about $84,000. And then we had some other adjustments to restricted funding, including lottery and career technical education funding. And then finally, with local revenues, as you know, we always book our revenues as we receive them, and so we had some increases for donations and scholarships, and some other changes to local revenue. This table shows the summary of changes for expenses, and so you can see probably the largest category would be services and operating, and we'll talk about that momentarily. And then here we see some drill down detail. For certificated salaries and classified salaries, the biggest change was the 3.75% increase, which the board approved by virtue of our tentative agreement from last year. and then our public disclosure documents at the last meeting, and then our salary schedules on consent. We had some other changes too. You may recall that I'm building the budget in the spring for the June original budget, and then we have lots of small changes throughout the year, and so by the time we get to first interim, there's been quite a few ins and outs. One example of that would be the FTE that we've been holding for academic excellence. We haven't needed that full portion this year, and so we've reduced the budget accordingly, but then we build it back in for next year. And we've retained some for the remainder of the year, just depending on what those changes are. Changes to employee benefits are the result of the changes to salaries. And then with books and supplies and services and operating, you can see that we have some large increases there, primarily due to those one-time donations and scholarships and so forth. We also had some new expenditures this year related to special education that get booked under services and operating. And then with capital outlay, that has to do with equipment and so forth, and the adjustments there mainly all had to do with restricted funds. This snapshot shows our multi-year projection, and so the information that you saw for 18-19 carries over to this slide here with an unrestricted surplus to the fund balance of about $568,000. And then with the rising costs of health and welfare and STRS and PERS increases, you can see that while we continue to have a budgeted surplus in the out years, it decreases. We also have in 18-19 the governor's one-time dollars that we talked about before. And so here, as you can see, we do indeed have a positive fund balance in each of those years and available reserves of just under 24%. And then this table shows all of the different assumptions that go into budgeting our revenue for the multi-year projection, and these assumptions are also included in the budget assumptions that the District Budget Committee works on and recommends to the board for approval each year. And while this is not every single revenue assumption we have, it's probably the most significant. These are the assumptions related to expenses. For example, we've budgeted approximately 2% in each year for step and column increases. Now with the school year underway for 18-19, we're able to really drill down and get to actuals on step and column. But because there's quite a few ins and outs there, it's a little challenging to say exactly the dollar amount that's associated with that, but it's still approximately 2% for 18-19. And then you can see also the increased cost of step and column and STRS and PERS. And then you'll note that I referenced the two additional paraeducator positions at the bottom in 19-20. And then because that would be a planned ongoing expense, we don't duplicate it in 2021 because that would imply we were doubling it, so that's why you see a 0 in 2021. But I do want to point out that we did have an error in the presentation, and so I only captured just a portion of the salaries there and not the full amount that Mr. Heller referenced of the $95,000, and so I provided the board with an updated page there. Yep. And there are copies for the public as well. And so on that document, I highlight the $95,584. And all of the actual budget documents have the correct figure built in. So it's just an error in the presentation. And then with our reserves, it's very important that we establish a set aside for certain expenditures that we want to make sure we've got the dollars for. And so these are the different components of a portion of our reserves that is assigned, which means that we don't include it in the available reserves. And then the next two slides depict our financial information for our other funds. So for example, our food services. program, and we're projecting a small positive ending fund balance there. And then Deferred Maintenance Fund 14 is one of our reserves that we have for capital projects. Fund 17 is our special reserve, and that is combined with the reserve in the general fund to make up our 23%. We still have some remaining dollars in our Measure B and Measure C Fund 21, and those are earmarked for technology infrastructure. And then finally, we'll be sending, once the board considers and approves the first interim report, then we'll be passing that along to the Napa County Office of Education, and they review it and send it to the state. And then meanwhile, we are in a continuous cycle of reviewing the current year's budget and preparing for next year as well. And with that, I would ask the board to consider approval of the 2018-19 first interim report.
Thank you very much. Is there any public comment? Trustees, any questions or comments?
I just, I'm assuming the revenue for the Fund 21, is that interest? We're not getting any more.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions or comment? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the 2018-19 first interim report as presented?
I motion to approve the 2018-2019 first interim report.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're on to item number 12C, which is approval of the 2017-18 financial audit report. Once again, Ms. Sandy Stubbs, please.
Thank you. And the board has hard copies of the audit report as well. And I would first like to take the opportunity to thank our site and district staff that participated in this audit. We had just one finding, and the findings are at the very end of the packet. And so if we go to the second to the last page. The finding that we had for 17-18 had to do with the kinder retention form. We had a student in 17-18 who was retained in kindergarten, and a form was used to document that retention, but it wasn't the appropriate California Department of Education form, and so we received a finding for that. It's non-material for our district, however, because we are a basic aid district, and so had we been a revenue sharing district, then we would have had a financial adjustment of about $6,700. And so it's very important that moving forward we ensure that we're using the proper form. And so we revised our attendance records accordingly and resubmitted our attendance records to the state. And then in January or February, I will bring to the board a corrective action form that comes from the County Office of Ed. And so they review our audit report and they prepare the corrective action documents for this finding. And then once the board approves those, then those get sent to the state. And so with that, however, I would recommend that the board consider approval of the 2017-18 financial audit.
Is there any public comment? Trustees, any questions or comments? No. Congratulations.
Yes,
again.
I think it says something that our financial audit finding was not really that financial.
Yeah.
Well, I think last year we had no findings. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, no findings last year. I was hoping for a repeat of last year.
Yeah.
There's always next year.
That's right.
Thank you to you and your team for all the work on
Yes.
this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the 2017-18 financial audit report as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That brings us to item number 13. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and call for about a 5-minute break, and we can let everybody have a chance, and we'll come back in 5 minutes and start back with item 13. Thank you.
It was not an easy liftoff, but
Of course.
I really appreciate
I know, that's what I'm saying. I won't make any comments about you guys' presentation. Don't wanna hear them.
No, she said that when I asked her, yeah, does she want? Is there something coming up for the next time? I think it's students who are affected by this.
spend all the football season like going like 100 miles an hour, and then you get sick when it's downtime. Drives me nuts. I know. I cannot. But I haven't had one for years, and I do rarely. I don't know if you just I'm sure I'll get sick. Everybody gets sick. Saturday, I'm sure they always sick.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, 5 minutes past, and I'm sure Trustee Kerr will be joining us in a moment. We're on to item number 13, Communications Board Member Reports. Mr. Julio Oguin, please.
All right, so I had the privilege to visit the Latino Student Union on November 28th. I was able to visit with them during Mr. Diamond's in Mr. Diamond's classroom. This group basically came about from last year with two avid students that kind of were the brain trust behind this group. Kenya Cruz and Amber Ruiz, they're seniors now, and so essentially they were just looking for ways to just get more of their culture to be represented on campus. They formed the group, or they met for the first time in September. They had 45 students, which is a pretty big group for them. They said one of the main focuses is that they want to get more underclassmen, so freshmen and sophomores, to participate, and then also more boys to participate in this group. So the meeting, I think they went over the designs for a logo for their T-shirt, which is right there, and me and Principal Cinto actually voted on a few of the logos. And then they talked a little bit about their community work, so working at the Stonebridge Apartments with Ms. Vosti, in which students are working with their parents on how to use Aries and email, and just kind of get some more basic background with technology, just so that parents can feel more in the loop and can kind of help their kids. So I met with them, and then after I had the opportunity to just kind of talk to them one-on-one, and so they went more into detail about their mission and kind of what their focus is, and so their big focus is that they want to empower, equip, and give students an opportunity to express their voice. And they want to have an impact on the community, so doing things like working with the Stonebridge apartment parents, that's one way. And then they also want to raise more awareness of the AP classes for Latino students, so just wanting to push that group to do better in school. They were also wanted me to let the board, or just, that they're really just a platform for students to express themselves. So I'm really looking forward to see how they develop and what they do in the community. And I feel like they have a good group of kids, and I personally invited them to one of our board meetings in the future so they can come talk to you guys about their program. So it was a great experience.
Excellent. Thank you. We're on to item 13B, which is Superintendent Subcommittee Reports. It looks like everybody has been a little busy attending different committee. So we'll start with Budget Committee. Lisa, Jeannie, who'd like to? Thanks.
I'm happy to report. We had our budget committee meeting on Wednesday, November 14th. It was the agenda was similar in the past, as where we review the fiscal updates from School Service of California. We discuss a little bit about FCMAT, which is the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team, and that was just information only as far as kind of the work that they do. Went over the draft budget assumptions, which is what we do each meeting. And I would say probably the high point of the meeting is we had a very robust, it was a small group, but robust conversation about future-ready classrooms. That would be including, certainly furniture, technology, just changing up the classroom a little bit, and kind of the in budgeting, it would be something to consider, and this is something we were talking at the budget committee at that time, and it'll certainly come to the board as well, is to start with one school at a time and kind of concentrate on the schools and things. So I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that as time goes on.
Thank you. Board policy meeting we went to on December 10th. Maria, will you discuss that, please?
Sure. So I'll just go over the board policies that were recommended. Board policy 0420.42. It's these are all basically from CSBA recommendations. It's even though we don't have charter schools, it's a policy on charter school renewals, and it's recommended that we adopt that. Board policy 3290. It's gifts, grants, and bequests. It's updated to address certain changes, such as online fundraising and other just updates, basically, for gifts. And we're going to be studying that policy further, so we're just have that one on hold because we do want to talk to our online fundraising groups. And next one is AR 3320 and then AR 3460. Those are ARs. The first one is claims and actions against the district. That is bringing our current AR into sync with the new law, which was passed at it's SB 1053. And AR 3460 is a financial reports and accountability AR. Board policy 4114. Let's see, it's again another CSBA recommended policy on transfers. And then the next one is, we have a lot of policies. Board policy and AR 5141, it's school health services. These are all, again, updates. Board policy AR 51441, it's on suspension and expulsion. Board policy AR 51483, that was recommended that we adopt with the policy with option 1, but we're not doing.
We're actually, that's our agenda item 14A. So if you
so
just
why don't I just stop right now and we'll
gonna
go
say
on to 14A, because these are all going. These are all going to be addressed.
Yes. Okay.
I apologize.
We met. Curriculum Technology Innovation Committee. Julio, Maria, who would like? I'm going to give it to Julio. You just want to have one.
All right, that one was on December 11th.
Yes.
Let's see, we received information about the district-wide Spanish, basically a look from kinder to high school with the goal of increasing biliteracy seal. Mary Ellen talked about some of the pilot programs in the lower grades, which I think they talked about earlier, the kinder, third, and fifth, so and the extra minutes of instruction with extra teachers. They gave us a presentation on information on tech, what it looks like across the different schools. And yeah, I think out of the tech, I mean, obviously it's going to look a lot simpler for our younger students, which is great. We don't want them to be on the iPads and all that too early, but basically it just shows the opportunity for students later on that have that passion for technology with things like coding, 3D modeling, multimedia, robotics, circuits, solar energy, just a bunch of cool stuff if you're into tech. And then also how for other students that maybe that's not their main focus, the technology is used on a daily during classes and in different forms. So everyone's getting some form of technology, but there's definitely opportunity for those students that want to go in that direction. And then there was a presentation, beyond high school presentation from Principal Cinto. And so he just showed us some data basically of our students to show how many students are going to college and how many of them are finishing. I think the number he said was about 50% of St. Helena Unified School District are graduating from college, so going to college and finishing. And I believe that they said the average in California is about 40%. So committee also discussed about how it's important to obviously focus on college students, but also focus on maybe non-college bound students, because there are other careers and trades that are growing in not just in California but across the state, and so it's important that we're giving those students different, which I think we are at the district, obviously offering different career pathways and opportunities for them to experience and explore those groups. So that was pretty much it.
Thank you. We are on Equity, Climate, and Culture Committee. Lisa and Julio, who's?
I'm afraid Julio's going to have to take that
Okay.
one because I was absent.
Yep, understood.
Equity, Climate, Culture Committee, November 13th. This one I think we were working at the first meeting. We were kind of trying to figure out the mission, or the mission statement. So we have a mission statement. So I'd like to read it. The mission of the Equity, Climate, and Culture Committee is to focus on student, staff, parent, and community issues related to A, how all students access opportunities for success, B, how all students are engaged in campus culture, and C, how all students feel connected in school. We reviewed the Spanish reading books, and actually I wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Guerrero and Mrs. Montelli. I think at the first meeting we approved to spend the $2,000 to provide books, and I know it's cutting kind of close, and we were worried if they were going to be able to give those out at the parent conferences, but they placed the orders, sorted everything, and got the books to all the teachers. And so Ms. Guerrero reported that all the students, families, and teachers were all very excited. I think every student received 2 books, which is great. And then Mary Ellen discussed the California Healthy Kids Survey, which was completed by students grade 4 through 9 and 11th. Results will be coming in February. And then the parents also completed a similar survey. I think she said there was 112 parents that completed it. And obviously the goal with this is to get input, not just from students and the staff, but also from the parents, and kind of just to compare to see how the responses are about, questions about the school climate and just all types of questions regarding school. And this is just going to allow us to make basically improvements and help guide us moving forward. So I think that was it.
Thank you. The next we have is, let's see, LCAP. Thank you.
And I can take that one. How about
Yep.
So the definite highlight of the LCAP committee meeting was we had a panel of 8 high school students that came. And as you guys well know, that when we get to hear from students, it's definitely exciting and you feel like you're hearing from your customers. So Mr. Cinto and Mr. Fetters provided a nice cross section of students between gender, race, academics and interests, wherever they lie. And they were incredibly well-spoken, incredibly eloquent, I thought, and they were honest in their questions. I won't read you all the questions, but I'll give you a sample of what one of them sounded like. In your transition to this school, what skills, tools, and guidance did you have that helped you to be successful? Success being the achievement of a desired result academically, socially, physically. And they were great. I think Julio would probably agree with that, but it was a really treat to get to hear from them. So I hope that they will get to come back again in the course of that committee, because it's, I find this committee to be like the bones of, of what drives everything this district does. And I find it to be very informative, and you get to hear from all of our site admin and district staff, and it's very informative. The other focus there was school site action plans from the primary and the elementary school, a lot of which we discussed were map measures and things like that, which you heard tonight. So I won't repeat much of that information because you've got it in detail tonight. And then community engagement always continues to be a focus. And of course, the St. Helena Cafe is coming in February. So I'm sure that's on everybody's calendar, but that is going to be great because it's going to be at a different venue, different kind of format. And I hope that we'll get some great feedback from that.
Wonderful, thank you. Preschool for all.
Okay, so for Preschool for All, we had two meetings since our last board meeting. Our first meeting was on November 13th, 2018, and it was more of an administrative meeting. It was kind of our monthly meeting. We reviewed our bylaws. We spoke about the events that Julia, who's the executive director, and parents attended at the Harvest Festival and the Day of the Dead. We put together we organized a Nimbus Arts fun day for our preschool students and their parents, and that was on Sunday, which I heard was fabulous. I wasn't able to be there, but so they were. That was great. And then the second meeting we had on Tuesday, December 4th, and this meeting was called because we recently received a substantial donation that they'll be funded for 5 years. So it was more of a planning meeting as far as how we wanted to move forward with that, and it's certainly it was great news for our organization, and I want to just say to the folks that don't know about St. Helena Preschool for All, it's actually a 501c3 that we established. It was our former board member Cindy Smith and myself who formed this with the parents in the community, and we formed it in 2013 as a nonprofit. And what our group does is we through donations we fund our children that live in our school district with tuition to go to preschools, and it's preschools that are our local preschools. So it's the Sun and Stars Montessori, Mila's Family Daycare, St. Helena Cooperative Nursery School, Discoveryland, and Little Backpacks, which is what's the oldest, formerly called Discoveryland. So we've been doing that now for 5 years, and we have always been on a very much of a shoestring budget. And with this donation, we're able to expand the number of hours that our children are able to attend preschool, as well as the number of days. So we're very, very pleased. We're looking at that as well as expanding the parent component of it as well, because part of our nonprofit is for in order for our students, part of them to receive the tuition is that they need to have family involvement and volunteering within the community. So we'll be expanding that portion of it as well. So it was a planning meeting on that day, and we're very, very pleased and very, very thankful for the very generous donation that we received.
Wow, wonderful news.
Thank you.
The last one we have is the Wellness Committee, and that's either Lisa or Maria.
So we did have a fabulous taste test. Andy brought pupusas. It was just delicious, and we also went over. Angela had some garden to table grants that she researched, and there's some that are quite generous, and then there's some that are around $1,000, $500, and she's going to pursue those, getting funds for gardening throughout the district. We went over the healthy vending machine results. There's going to be some healthy vending machines. We're going to pilot some snacks that the Wellness Committee picked the snacks. We went through a long process, and the top items from the whole group were selected. We're going to pilot those, see how they work with the students, and then the students will really decide whether the snacks stay or whether they don't, depending on how popular they are. But they're all very healthy vending snacks, nuts, healthy drinks, healthy granola bars. That's just at the high school. So we went over the vaping event that was held by the NCOE in Yountville. There's going to be some conferences coming up that some of our members will be attending. The movie Resilience is going to be shown on February 20th. There's a mental health conference in January that Laura Jorgensen is going to in Sacramento. There's the Student Wellness Conference in Napa in March of 2019. And then one of our last films for parents to see is going to be the last one picked, which is going to be at the Performing Arts Center on April 17th. That's about it.
Okay, thank you very much. That wraps up all the committees that I know of. Okay. Item 13C, St. Helena Teachers Association, Mr. Brandon Farrell.
Okay. As always, I'll try to be pretty quick. Since the last board meeting, I want to acknowledge that our executive board from SHTA was able to meet with our executive team, or the district leadership team, and our President Conwell, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with them and look forward to more opportunities like that. I think in our LMI meeting today with Christina, we talked about all getting together later on in the year or at the beginning of the year, correct? Yeah, and I thought that that is a good start to develop some good relationships that way. Regarding some of the things that we talked about, I want to highlight some of the principals' work. They tend to leave right before I get to thank them for all of those presentations, but I thought they did a great job of presenting some of the things that yeah, I know, he's always here. We challenge each other to see who stays the latest. But I kind of lost my train of thought right there, but the slides really not only highlighted some of the growth in the map, but I thought they did a good job highlighting some of the things that our teachers are doing, and I really want to take a moment to thank the teachers for all of those things. We have our holiday party coming up next Tuesday, which we're going to celebrate some of the years of service, some of our members along with the CSEA members there, so it's always fun to party. And then that's really kind of it. So again, I just wanted to kind of thank you for the opportunity of coming in and speaking with us, and also look forward to working with all of you on creating great student outcomes throughout the district. So,
thank you very much, Mr. Farrell. We're on to 13E, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Wilson, please.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
I wanted to, on behalf of Dave Pauls, our middle school PE teacher and track and field varsity coach, he wanted to extend his appreciation for you approving his fundraiser, and wanted to make sure that you understood that while they do have a timing system, they're looking for this updated automatic timing system that will provide his athletes with more accurate times for the different events that they participate in. And he's very gracious that you approved that fundraiser without question. I do have a couple of photographs that Melissa will slide through. The first week of December, historically is the Hour of Code throughout the nation and the entire world. That is an opportunity for students to get online and at any grade level begin some coding. And over the course of the last 5 years, coding has become a part of our schools during that week in December and any other day or week of the year based on the classrooms and the interest level, as Trustee Olguin mentioned earlier. So at every school, something is happening with regards to technology every day, and there's a few specific things happening during the month of December, which is pretty fun. Want to remind everyone that the calendar has changed. Our students will be attending school through Wednesday of next week. That will be a minimum day. Finals for the high school start tomorrow and go through Wednesday of next week. And then finally, I just wanted to welcome Melissa here, Melissa Hanson, as she's pinch hitting for Erica Madrigal, who is watching us on YouTube and feeling a little bit under the weather. So thank you, Melissa, and shout out hello to Erica. And finally, just wishing everyone a safe and happy holiday season.
Thank you. We're on to item number 14, board-related items. This is item A, information discussion, potential approval of the revision of board policies in December 2018. Mr. Chris Heller, please.
President Conwell, would you like me to go through all of these, or how would you like me to do this evening?
Well, I think after almost all of them, and please correct me if I'm, are basically something that was stipulated by the state. The one thing I wanted you to, if you would, cover that option, and I think the rest, unless trustees have any questions on any of them.
That'd be fine. Thank you. On board policy, Administrative Regulation 51441, suspension, expulsion, due process, there were two options that were presented. Option one had language that allowed school administrators or teachers to suspend students from class in grades TK, or not, from grades 4 on through their senior year. Thus, therefore, you would not be able to suspend a student from your classroom TK through 3 for defiance, thinking that they would not understand the principles of defiance. Option 2 had an option that said no student would be suspended for defiance, willful defiance throughout the grades. We just felt that although those types of suspensions, which are called 48900K, are on the decline, allowing that flexibility for administrators to use that in certain circumstances would be beneficial moving forward instead of the no provision, which was option 2. Does that better clarify that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess, is there any public comment on this set of policies? Yeah, now I'm going to come back. Okay, trustees, questions on any of the policies?
I just, a clarifying question, and this is probably, clarifying question. On the AR 6152.1, the placement in mathematics courses.
Yes.
Is this, Dr. Wilson, when we had a conversation at the CSBA conference, was this related to that when I was speaking how it was supposed to be, it's supposed to outline placement and how, and make parents aware of how placement occurs? This is what this does as well? I'm assuming. Do you remember we had that conversation? Because I attended a session that said a policy needed to be on, on your website's district's homepage, kind of.
Correct.
Okay.
And I believe what I shared with you is that it was coming up at this board meeting.
Okay, perfect. That just wanted to clarify it was one and the same. So thank you.
I have a quick question. This is this one, AR 6145.2, athletic competition.
Yes.
So as far as the external defibrillator, sorry about that, will we need to purchase additional ones then with this?
Yes. We will need to purchase, I believe, three. Yes, okay. 3, 2 at the high school and 1 at RLS to be accessible for events at various points around the campus.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments concerning this December package of policy changes? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the 2018 board policy revisions as presented and as part of the board meeting tonight?
I'll make that motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're on to item 14B. This is options for students impacted by the change in AR 5117.1. Dr. Mary Lou Wilson, please.
Yes, thank you. I've been sharing with you for the last number of board meetings that at our board policy committee meetings, there has been a discussion around the administrative regulation that came before you in August, AR 5117.1, having to do with the enrollment of students of employees. And I have let you know that my recommendation was going to be to make the change to remove the word regular in the administrative regulation, effective July 1st of 2019. What that does is further defines whose children can attend school of employees. It requires that an employee be defined as either certificated or classified, not at will or seasonal. And remember that that's an AR only, so that's my recommendation. ARs do not come before the board for a vote. I will be making that change. So as a result of that change, I do know that there's some conversation that needs to occur with you as a board, because we do have some families and some students that would be impacted by this change in the AR. And so the options are before you on the screen right now. I did seek legal counsel, spoke with one of our attorneys at great length with regards to options. Numbers 1, 2, and 3 on the screen are part of the AR currently. Those are current policy that are used, fulfill the residency requirements to attend, so live in the attendance area, fulfill the employee requirements, become a classified or certificated employee, or participate in the District of Choice program and gain enrollment in that manner. Number 4 would be to develop a resolution, and that resolution would be written by legal counsel with my support, that would define continued admittance for those students who are currently attending our schools and their parents are currently at-will employees and would no longer have that right. I want to caution you with regards to this resolution, because while legal counsel has given me advice that it is a legal option, they also do not recommend this option. There's a concern around the slippery slope of, if you write this resolution for this group of families, then the family who has attended our schools and moved and really wants to stay but no longer lives in the attendance area, that then they would want a resolution written for them, and so on and so on. And so while it is legal, and if you are directing me to develop that resolution, I will do so, it is a slippery slope and is not recommended by either legal counsel or myself. So at this time, I recommend that you move forward with options 1, 2, and 3. And if you could advance the slide, please, Melissa. I would seek a direction from you in a discussion and next steps. Also for you, and Melissa, if you could put the screen that shows the enrollment, just as additional information. I thought this might be valuable in your conversation. Thank you. The slide that you're seeing right now, at the top there, on the left-hand side, stay at the top first, please. On the left-hand side are our enrollment caps for the District of Choice program, and these are current enrollment, as of, I believe, a number of days ago. And then, so our enrollment caps for the 2018-19 school year, and then the actual enrollment this year as of that date. And you can see that we are well over cap in many of those grade levels. And then down below, family, if you can go ahead and scroll down, thank you. Families who have children attending our schools and our employees enroll their children through the Inter-District Attendance Agreement, the IDA. And so these numbers that are shown on this screen would reflect the students who would be impacted by the change in AR 5117.1 on the right-hand side. You'll note that the 11th grader does not show as an impacted count, as part of our administrative regulations is to allow a incoming senior to stay through their graduating year to finish high school. It's very complicated to change high schools with the credits and requirements, and so we maintain them as a senior with our schools. So those numbers may be helpful in your discussion. I'm not sure, but I wanted to have them there for you in the event that ask that we open up for discussion, and if I could, prior to you doing that, President Conwell, I did receive 2 public comments. Each of the board members has a copy of them. One came from Aaron Presblinsky. Thank you. Say that one for me.
Aaron Presblinsky.
Thank you. And Diane Maher, who was here for the meeting, was not able to stay.
Okay, at this time, we are opening up for public comment. Anybody who would like to address the board, please do so, but please be mindful of 3 minutes. Thank you. Just a reminder that you are being timed because of our meeting length, so a buzzer will go off at the 3-minute, and at that point I'll ask you to please be finished. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Sean Mora. I am an avid tutor. This will be, I guess, the second time speaking about this topic to you guys. So I moved my family back here from Florida this summer so that we could be closer to my family and my parents, and knowing that I was returning my kids to an amazing school district. We made the decision to move in March, I wanted to be involved in the school district, so I looked for part-time positions that were available. I found Avid. It fit perfectly for me. Education is really important for me and my family, and that's why I wanted to be involved and get to know the teachers, the community, and the schools. I live in St. Helena. My address is St. Helena. My phone number is St. Helena. It has been since I went to school here. Yet, when I went to register my kids, I found out that our house is in Calistoga School District. So, no idea. So I didn't have the opportunity to even apply for district of choice at that point. I guess the line runs down our street. So the people on the other side of my street are in and we are out. So I was really shocked, but I was presented with great news when they had heard I applied for an Avid position, because they said, don't worry, it's a benefit of employees and for Avid tutors that your children can come in. So it was like hallelujah, and we were very happy. So I was a little concerned, upset, freaked out that it might change. You were presented with 4 options today. I did. Option 1 is to move my property in the district. So actually, at the help with Dr. Wilson and Andy Stubbs, they went over this big, long, convoluted process that I'm contacting the Board of Education to try to rezone. I have been told that it's only been used to rezone towns. It has never been used by a property, and considering the amount of time I've been waiting to even hear back to initiate, I don't have high hopes. Option 2 is a full-time employee. I can apply for the Avid position, and I will, but there are 8 employees now, 8 Avid tutors, and 2 positions, 25% chance, so not high. Option 3, district of choice. You saw the enrollment numbers. That's not really an option for real. On paper it is. Option 4 is just to grandfather the kids in. I would continue doing my role, by the way. I think one of the worst things I could do to my kids is move them again. That would be very hard. So I just ask that you treat these 8 kids as your kids. Yeah, they are your students now. They're part of the district. And that's all I can ask of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Perry. I'm an Avid tutor at RLS. I'm also a parent of 2 students who will be impacted by the change in the administrative regulation. I've also served as a school board member, and so I understand the complexity of the issue in front of you. First, I'd like to say how much I enjoy being an Avid tutor. It's truly a pleasure to mentor middle school kids who are going to college. Having worked in youth development for over 20 years in both schools and in the nonprofit community, I could say that Avid is one of the best academic programs I've seen. I was truly looking forward to working in this program for years to come. In my case, it would have been 7 years that I would be an Avid tutor. That's great consistency in my book. That said, I'm here tonight as a parent. Had I known that the district was considering changing its longstanding policy and practice around Avid tutors and residency for enrollment, I would not have moved my students to the primary and elementary schools. But now, They're enrolled under the current administrative regulation and have established friendships. They've settled into new routines and become part of your school community, as have I. While I can understand why the district is choosing to change the administrative regulation and its practices going forward, I would ask that you consider these 8 students who are caught in the transition. As you can imagine, having to move schools, in my kids' case after only 1 year, would be very disruptive to their education and their well-being. While we as adults are able to easily transition from one environment to the next, big changes, especially ones that they are not seeking, are never easy for kids and can set them back, both academically and emotionally. Clearly, having been in a few of your meetings and knowing about your school district, you are care deeply about students and education. I ask that you consider passing a resolution that would take into consideration these young learners' needs and allow them to stay in their school communities. Please don't penalize these 8 kids. As Dr. Wilson explained to me, and I know that you know, a resolution of this type has precedent in the school district. A few years ago, when the board chose to transition from the IDA process to district of choice, you chose as a board to grandfather or to allow these students who were enrolled in the district at that time under prior policies to stay enrolled in the school communities. I hope that you will do the same for these 8 students who face the same circumstances as those kids did a few years ago. Thank you for your thoughtfulness and for your commitment to the district students, including my own.
Thank you.
Hello again. My name is Kira Cunningham, and I spoke to you all in August about this same topic. Again, I grew up here in the 70s and 80s, myself and my 2 sisters. My father was on the school board, was president of the school board, now raising my own daughters in the Napa Valley. And I come from a family of caregivers and mentors. So the AVID program for me has been a very serious effort. I take it very seriously. It is a true honor to be affecting even just a moment of the lives of these amazing kids. I work with the 6th graders at the RLS. They are remarkable and eager and try very hard, just like all of your kids and my child and kids everywhere generally tend to do. So that has been a privilege that I was hoping to continue for as long as possible. It just means very much to me. I heard tonight, as it was explained by Mary Allen, that AVID wasn't attracting tutors when it first began, and they tried a couple of different things, and it wasn't until they offered enrollment to children of potential tutors that they began to become full of great candidates. So this agreement was created by the district for a very important purpose. I know, obviously, we can all agree that everything here that happens in this room, that happens in all of the buildings that create your district, it's about the kids. It's about the well-being of each and every one of those kids, and each and every one of them is equally valuable and deserves opportunity and support and security in their community, whether they've been in that community for 7 or 8 years or whether they are just starting to find their way in that community. This is a threat to these 8 kids. This is a very serious threat to their well-being. I would like to respectfully plead with you to please consider that each of these 8 is an individual deserving so much respect and support and security, deserving to find their full potential within this district that they have started in, with the friends they have made, with the teachers they've connected to. I'm sorry, I've been taking so many notes tonight. So I ask that you would consider this fourth resolution, despite the slippery slope that may occur somewhere out in the future. Cleanly create a new resolution. Give these kids their security, allow them to remain connected and enrolled, and then move on with your new plan. Please don't let them be affected, because the damage could be very great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Catherine Rabley. I'm the Student Life Coordinator at the Culinary Institute, and I've been there for the past 15 years. And part of our life and our family, my husband Alex is here as well, is education. So I've been in higher education for actually over 20 years. And my husband and I actually this past spring, when we were thinking about the possibility of looking at houses, wanted to make sure that the kids were going to stay close by and in the district. Our oldest daughter, Madeline, is a junior, will be going into her senior year next year. Our youngest is in 6th grade. And before we even started looking at houses, we inquired about the possibility of being part of this program because I wanted the kids to be close by. This is the only district they've ever known. They've been educated in the Catholic school and then made the switch over to the district here. And so this is all they've ever known. So I knew that there was some question about the program back in August. I implore you to reconsider. If you want consistency, that's what I'm trying to provide for my daughter as well. And I would be happy to continue being an avid tutor gratis. That's not an issue in terms of my world. I'm lucky enough to be able to be just down the street here, and I would like to continue to provide that for my children, as I'm sure every parent would like to. So I just want to implore you to consider options on behalf of the 8 students that are impacted by this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Alex Ribley. I'm Catherine's husband. I'm going to try to be as well-spoken as everybody else. I'm not a native speaker, and I had bad grades in English, so I'm sorry. I just want to say, and speaking from the heart, that there is 8 students who are going to be impacted by your decision, and we all have been very involved in the community, in sports, at the with basketball and different activities, and my wife here at the Culinary Institute. So we ask respectfully if you could consider, keeping those 8 students in your thoughts and also allowing them to progress in their life. As parents, we can be impacted in many ways, but those students are going to be a lot more impacted by your decision. So thank you for considering that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Trustees, questions, comments?
Am I going to start?
Sure.
So one thing I would like to get maybe a little historical clarification on was the comment in public comments about going from an IDA to when we became a DOC. Can anybody provide a little background on that for me? And did we grandfathered the children in at that time, the students?
You'll recall that I was not here.
I know. I'm just looking to you because you usually have most answers.
From my understanding and in my attempt to gather as much information as I can, and to learn the story, which could be the history, is that at the time when IDAs were the method for students to enroll in the school that did not live in our attendance area, it was fairly subjective and did not have a logical sequence of decision making, that there was it varied as to who would be approved and who would not be approved.
Okay.
So there were a host of families at that time, and this is many years ago because District of Choice has been in place now, I would guess 9+ years at this point.
Okay.
At that time, there were families who were here on inter-district transfers. Those were signed agreements. They were here. And my understanding is that they were grandfathered into the District of Choice program.
Okay.
And at that time, then, all families who wanted to attend our schools outside of the attendance area would then need to go through the District of Choice option or fulfill one of the other options within the AR.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
The families that were affected, because we spoke about this in, I think in August, did any of those families, did they apply for the District of Choice program?
They have all applied for the District of Choice program for the 1920 school year, yes. Previously, I don't know that whether any of them or all of them had applied for choice.
Well, I'm just going to start off with my comments. I've been looking at this situation for months now, and it's one of these really difficult decisions that we have to make. I've looked at the fact that, we won't be getting funding for these students. They're going into, many of them are in grades that are over the cap that we have set. The fact that that they would be, if we do a resolution, that there are families that have waited and tried to get into the District of Choice for years and haven't gotten in, and these students would move ahead of them. But what I just come back to all the time, every time I think about this, they are our students, and we have to put students first, and we always say that we put students first. So I might not be, I don't know where everyone stands. I haven't talked about this with any of you, but I am for creating a resolution that we maintain these students in our district, because it is in the students' best interests. And we say over and over that we put students first. I don't want to put policy before students.
Trustees, other comments?
Yes. So I've been grappling with this since August, because it's one of the decisions that our school board members don't like to make. These are the decisions we just don't want to have to make when it comes to our students. And right now I'm just going to share kind of my thoughts and how what I've been thinking. I agree with Maria in the sense that we always say that students are first. They are our priority, and I believe with that. I believe, and I want to make sure that. So I'm going to get past that one. But I also want to say that we're a board that we value honesty, integrity, and fairness. And so the fairness part of it is something that really sticks in my mind, where it's similar to, exactly what Maria said, is there's children and families who've been trying to get into our district for years. And we get notes on them too. We hear from them as well, and they cannot get in, and they're not able to be an avid tutor because of their working 2 or 3 jobs, or even just 1 job. So it seems to be, it would be unfair for us to admit students into our schools when they've been trying to come in as well. Excuse me. So that's that part of it. But I also feel that it's I'll just be honest. It doesn't feel good inside knowing that from, it sounds like that that the parents haven't, that they didn't go through the District of Choice what am I trying to say, process in December, and that's, that's just on my mind too. It's so I'm going to leave it right there. That's where I'm at right now.
So you mean you're concerned because of the District of Choice process last year?
Right, right. That's correct. Because it sounds like that's the case. And then and there's families that do go through all that and don't get in. So I'm not going to say anything more right now. Yep. That's what I feel.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough one. Just I understand about having your family and the difficulty of uprooting them, and and just, I mean, just speaking from personal experience, I mean, part of the sacrifice for a lot of parents, and this is speaking on my end as well, is that, you know, we selected St. Helena knowing that there's a high cost of living and it's difficult to rent and own here. And sometimes those sacrifices, I mean, I know it's hard, it would be hard for you guys to move into the district, but for a lot of parents, as for myself, I know many parents that are renting or living in a smaller home. I mean, I live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, which I have 4 kids. So for me, that's my sacrifice. And that's what I'm doing to better give my kids an opportunity. So for me, that perspective of, I know it's unfair for 8 students, but also on the flip side, there's a lot of families that are sacrificing to be in the district and to provide that opportunity for their kids. So I think for me personally, the options 1, 2, and 3 are what I'm leaning towards, because it's just, like I said, it's so difficult to live in St. Helena, and it's getting even harder, but as the cap numbers show, we're over capped, and so there's a lot of families that live in the district and are sacrificing that and just to be in the district. So for me, that's where I'm at.
So for me, going into this, as everybody else has been grappling with it, I also was weighing the fairness issue about and against all students first. And I 100% agree with what you're saying. I don't want to put policy in front of students either. What I want to first say is I want to kind of just address the whole avid tutor position, because I feel it's important to just put my feeling out there where my thought process is. The avid tutor is a valuable position, but by definition, it's not an equitable track for people to get their kids into our school district, because not everybody is able to be an avid tutor. So with changing the position, that does kind of level the playing field in that respect. And I just want to go on record and say that, because it's nothing against, by any means, with the time that everybody's donating and giving to our schools by any stretch of the imagination. But as Trustee Kerr said, if you are working 40 hours a week, or you are working 2 jobs, you don't have and you want your kids to be in St. Helena schools, and maybe they're already in an AVID program, you can't contribute that way, or you want them to be in an AVID program in our schools. So I think, to me, that's a big inequity issue, and I personally feel like I don't want to be a proponent of any more inequity, because I feel like our culture and our society right now is drowning in inequity, and I don't want to be a proponent further in my own school committee. Now, separate issue is these 8 students. And I do feel that they are getting stuck in the crosshairs of a policy change that nobody knew was coming. And I don't think that is fair to them either. And truly, 2 days ago, I was not leaning towards that way. And I will have to say that in doing a lot of kind of self-reflection, talking to some other mentors and whatnot, I do feel that that because it's a policy change and the issue of fairness, that I, in good conscience and good faith, could back up my argument and a vote for grandfathering those students in, because it's a policy change. We can back it up and say that, yes, this is a one-time thing, but if there is historical legacy to say that it's happened before, and I'm not using that as precedent, I'm just saying that I just feel like it's based in policy, and that as a governing board is what we are supposed to be focused on, as policy. So if the policy is changing, that's of no fault of the 8 students. And I do firmly believe that those students, we want to put our students first. So my gut would be to go for 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Thank you. So where I am is what's been brought up very well is the equity issue. And it all is the equity issue of district of choice and who is able to get here and who has the opportunity to apply for, at that time, the AVID tutor position. So to me, that is a major factor. I also am concerned about going against legal direction. I look at it that every one of them, even though they're not going to like this, but every one of them can move inside our city limits and can be a student and be a member. And there's choices they'd have to make. It's like Julio said, we make choices to be in the school district. And whatever those choices are, what we do, we have our own reasons why we're going to do those things. So it is an option. It might not be a pretty option. It might seem financially inconceivable, but it is an option out there. And so for me, I am comfortable with the 1, 2, 3 option and not the 4th option. So at this point, once again, this is an info only, so we still have a, there's no action here. This is just direction that we're, to give the superintendent as to where we're going to go. So I guess at this point, I'm going to come back to Trustee Kerr as to where you are, since it sounds like we have a 2-2 split on the different directions.
I'm always a swing vote. So I have a one of the things that I've been thinking about just recently is students that are out of residence that are going to our schools that may be asked to go to leave our district because they're out of residence, because they're not part of district of choice or a teacher, they're not an IDA. So with this resolution, would that make it even more slippery, just knowing that those students may say, oh, well, I've been in, I should continue to be in the district as well.
So, Trustee Kerr, what I think you're talking about is on a regular basis, we audit our residency. Mm-hmm. And in the event that we find that a family has either moved from the residence that was verified in St. Helena outside of the attendance area, or that for some reason there was an error in the attendance documentation, or unfortunately there have been times when there's been false documents turned in. So when any of those situations occurs, the family receives notification from my office that they have a certain period of time to re-verify their residency, meaning they need to come in and show residency documents as they do each year at the beginning of the year. If they're unable to do that, then they are given to the end of the grading period to stay in our schools and then go to their home school, enroll in their school of residence. So that's the process that you're talking about. And unfortunately, that's a conversation that Mr. Heller and I have on a more regular basis than you would actually think, with families who any one of those situations have occurred. Early in the school year, a family started school here. They moved into Angwin. They were elementary primary students, and they asked for that same grace because the child loved going to school here. Currently, we have a number of families where residency verification is being reviewed, and our schools our teachers are incredible. Our principals are, amazing. Our facilities are great. We have a governing board that has a heart for children and always puts them first. And we have a desired place for children to learn and grow. And so parents want their children in our schools. And the challenge is that they want their children in our schools. And I have that integrity piece around, if I have said no, you've moved and you need to attend another school, that slippery slope or legal counsel that I was mentioning is challenging to discuss with, okay, this group is X and this group is Y. It feels a little subjective that we potentially would grandfather a particular group in and not another group. And I think all of you know I'm a longtime educator, and if I could open the doors and let every child come to our schools that wants to, I would. we have a boundary. We have an attendance area, and that wouldn't be fiscally responsible. And I'm fairly certain our union president over there sitting over there would not be happy with class size if we opened our doors to every child that wanted to attend. It's a difficult decision, and I understand that. And the challenge I have is upholding the policy and the residency requirements and being true to those requirements for all families.
So my thought then is with this, as far as this is just as what I've been thinking as well. As far as a resolution, if we tonight said, there was 3 of us that said, we would like to see a resolution, would part of that resolution, would we be able to could we add additional 8 other spots for district of choice for possible future district of choice? You know what I mean? So you're adding for those grades that those students are in, we add another spot so that the students remain in their spot, but there's still another spot available.
So what you're so the resolution can read to whatever you ask me to design, as specific as possible. And with regards to the caps, what you're suggesting then would be that we would increase the cap
At that grade by the 1 or 2. Yes.
By 1 or 2. The challenge there is, Melissa, if you could put the enrollment number chart back up again. If we are going to increase the cap at, let's say, kindergarten.
No, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the grades, and I can't remember the grades,
scroll
4, 5, and 6.
Scroll down, Melissa. So let's find second grade.
So for second grade, we would just add two more spots.
So if you can scroll back down, if we look at second grade, back up, I'm sorry, yes, a second grade, our cap is 75 and we currently have 78. So you would be suggesting that we would increase the cap there to 80?
No, the cap would be, we would, oh, wow.
That was
I was
new.
just thinking where we just add.
We're already over cap.
Yeah.
So if you added 2, I think I'm following your line.
President Conwell, can you get on the microphone?
Excuse me. So if you went to 77, then we'd already be over cap, and it wouldn't add any spaces. Taking that second grade example, by looking at, maybe I'm going somewhere you're not. So maybe I'll let you finish.
No. You're.
So
and please understand that these are the enrollments within the last couple of weeks. Right. When we conduct the lottery in January at the January board meeting, which is completely objective, and you don't know which names are attached to which numbers, and neither do Erica or myself, we will take a new snapshot of enrollments. And remember that if we are not at the enrollment cap at a grade level, then we are required to allow those number of students in through district of choice. So, for example, I believe there was a grade level. 6th grade.
6th grade.
6th grade is, the cap is 85, and we currently have 80. Right. So if we had in the January time period, if those numbers were still exactly the same, and we had 5 district of choice requests at the 6th grade, or 7, the first 5 that were drawn through the lottery would be enrolled into our schools.
And then waitlist after that.
And waitlisted. And the waitlist lasts through the 2nd week of the new school year.
2nd week of the new school year.
Because of potential changes in enrollment.
Right.
And this year is an interesting, it's an anomaly. We have more students than we've had since I've been here in the 5 years. I don't know if that enrollment will stand strong or if it will decline.
Right.
That would be a crystal ball that,
Right.
that I don't have.
Right.
So I can't make that prediction for you. Mm-hmm. So back to your question with regards to the resolution, in the event that I am directed to develop a resolution, I would be asking the board for input on parameters around that resolution.
Maria?
I know that it was hard for me to come to the conclusion that that I wanted to go for the option 4 resolution, because I know that there are issues of equity involved, and I want it to be fair, but at the same time, I am thinking of a student that's made friends, that's been in the community, has a feeling just to be moved from a school situation that they're used to and comfortable with can be very traumatic. At the same time, I don't think that it's the same as a family that intentionally lied about. I mean, we have a lot of families that do lie with their paperwork.
A lot is a strong word.
Okay.
I would say there are some.
Okay, there are some. No, not a lot. I'm sorry. That was very. No, there are a couple cases I know every year of parents who are dishonest and not truthful about their paperwork, and I never think that is something that should be condoned, or that we should be letting in students whose parents have intentionally broken the law or broken the rules to get in. I just feel that this is kind of a situation where these 8 students are caught in the middle, and it's not through their fault. It's not through their parents' fault. Their parents wanted to make sacrifices so that they could come here.
And I just to kind of tag on to that, I also think that, to your point a little while ago, is that this is not a group of families who have moved out of the district and are trying to lobby. I mean, they were at-will employees. They were employees of the district whose jobs positions have changed because of policy, and so therefore that's the only kind of that, where I could find justification for my reasoning, was that it was a policy change, not because somebody opted to say, I want to live in Yountville, but I still want my kids to come to St. Helena. I think that's it's different. And I realize it's still all a part of a slippery slope. I get that, because there are families that could come back to us and say, well, you did it for them. But this particular group, they were employees whose positions have now been potentially going to be eliminated because we've created new job descriptions for 2 tutors. So I don't know. To me, I think it is a slightly different argument. That's why I can stand by that in terms of policy. But that's my 2 cents.
So I would say that I would like to go for number 4 and see a resolution, because I have to say, quite honestly, I don't think that I would be able to sleep at night knowing that I didn't at least try this way to look at the resolution, because it is a policy, and that's originally in my mind what I had, where it's like, we're changing the policy, and I actually was on the board when we changed from the IDA to district of choice. So I would actually, I don't want to be a hypocrite as far as what my decision is tonight. So I would ask that a resolution be brought back to.
Okay, so I just to recap, so we have 3 people that would like, 3 trustees would like decision 1, 2, 3, and 4. Is that correct? Just give me a yes. Yes. Okay, and so
that's correct.
And so we have a majority of the board that would like to see a. So at this point, I would ask Dr. Wilson if you will seek legal counsel to come up with a resolution. And are you looking for some guidance?
I am looking for some additional guidance as to the parameters around what you believe this resolution should entail.
Okay.
So at this point, I will give it mostly to the 3 of you,
right,
to what you're looking for in this particular resolution.
So, as far as, is there a difference between the district of choice, kind of the regulations around the district of choice, and the IDA? As far as I know, in the past, IDAs were based on behavior. If there was any kind of behavioral problems, anything like that, then they're asked to leave the districts. And also, is it such that they would need to apply for it every year?
Absolutely correct, yes. District of choice child, once they are defined as district of choice in our district, they continue as a child of residence. An inter-district IDA child is an annual renewal, and yes, if there are issues with attendance, behavior, etc., then they can be invited to no longer attend our schools.
Well, never having really drafted a resolution before, I think, but what I would kind of like to see in there is if it has language about policy, because again, I keep kind of meaning back to policy because I want that to hopefully help define clearly. I mean, I'm looking for like clear so that future board members, years after this, like there's a clear policy in place that doesn't have to be left for interpretation year after year and, you know, and questions and things like that. So in that vein, you know, I wanted to know that somehow do we, for lack of a better term, protect ourselves by saying that this particular cohort of former employees are, because of elimination of a policy, were grandfathered in for, you know, in the 1920 school year.
Right. I don't expect you to draft the resolution. What I'm looking for from
I
you...
know the word whereas has to probably be in there.
It probably will be. The kinds of things that I'm looking for from you as a board are number of students,
okay,
duration of time, is it through the end of the grade span in which they are currently enrolled, K2, 3-5, you know, the entire school career.
Okay.
In the event that avid tutors come to us from previous years who are no longer serving as avid tutors, you know, does this resolution work for them as well? So I'm looking for the parameters, just the statements of fact that would be then incorporated into a resolution that I would bring back to you.
Okay, so I look at it as the avid tutors that were hired for the 18-19 school year. Due to a policy change that would be forthcoming. That's one of that's parameters. I say it includes the students, you know, the students that are in front of us, which is 8 students. If we want to outline it, it would be 8. And what else would I like to see in there? Oh, you want the duration. Well, I mean, if we're talking about putting students first, it would be, to me, their school career. But that's me. I don't want to speak for...
I would like to possibly see a way of eventually moving them into the DOC program, so that maybe there could be stipulation that they do apply for DOC every year.
Yes.
Each year. Yes. And that there's some provision that, well, the number would likely get smaller over time. So, but yes, the 8 students are it would be an automatic renewal if they are not enrolled in district of choice.
An automatic renewal then, rather than reapply?
Well, the IDA is every year, has to be. So that's why I would think that we have to, because these are not district of choice students, they would have a special IDA status. So we would have a I don't know if it would have to be a reapplication or an automatic renewal, or what would be the suggestion there? We'd have to get legal counsel on that probably.
I would certainly ask legal counsel, and I would need to know from you if you want an automatic renewal or an...
Right, so what if the parents choose not to submit for DOC? So if we're going to me, if they would be committed, they should have to do it themselves. It shouldn't be incumbent that they would, for all the years, it would just be an automatic that they fill out the paperwork once, and for the next 10 years, it's automatically filled out. So,
no, think you misunderstood what I said. I think what I'm saying is that part of their annual renewal would be that they have applied for district of choice. Does that make sense?
Except that what you're saying doesn't jive with what, because district of choice, I mean, it is a renewal, but the IDA is, I think that's what you're leaning towards. You want the paperwork not automatically filled out, where it has to be completed every year and turned in, and perhaps those particular students and their families are held to the standards that come with an IDA agreement. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but at the same time, we should be hoping to move them out of this IDA status into district of choice.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
To clarify then, in the event that they maintain their IDA status until a time which they may be invited in through district of choice, because they are to be enrolling in district of choice application annually as well, then they would be meeting the standards and the expectations under the IDA. So in the event that there were behavior issues, potential suspensions, expulsions, attendance, then they are falling under the IDA. I just need to know the parameters for the resolution.
I mean, I think that's a fair negotiation point to be on. If we're because if we're making special consideration for a group who was or stuck in the crosshairs of policy, then it's kind of a give and take. The district, as the board and the district, if we're willing to consider and give an opportunity to stay in the schools, I think it's only fair to ask families to meet halfway and hold up their end of the deal. I mean, that's a way to stay committed to our schools, I feel.
So let me see if I have captured your thoughts. You are interested in a resolution that focuses on the impact of the cohort of avid tutor students from the 18-19 school year, with a focus on explaining to the future that there was a policy change. And as a result of that policy change, you are interested in allowing these 8 students to continue in their entire school career through high school graduation, with the stipulation that annually they must apply for DOC and also continue to annually complete their IDA interdistrict agreement paperwork. And during the time which they are under IDA, they must comply with the standards of interdistrict agreements. Did I miss anything from your conversations?
And I don't know if this is going to be the case, but we might want to include it as well, is any siblings where they would need to go through the district of choice process.
Okay, so which siblings are you talking about?
Well,
you mean
siblings,
outside
like
of these 8 children?
Yeah, if there's siblings of these 8 children, if there's other
A new enrollee.
Right.
So tell me again what you would want the new
they would
enrollee?
need to go through the district of choice process.
Okay. So this is exclusive to these 8 students only?
That's correct.
Anything else? President Caldwell, if I may just talk to the matter of process at this point. We all know where we are in the month of December.
Right.
So I will work with legal counsel on a resolution. This would be a draft resolution. Ideally, it would come before the board in January, although I cannot guarantee that given the timing of where we are today and the timing of the board meeting in January. So at the latest, it would look at a February board meeting. And as a resolution, as a draft resolution, it would come before you, potentially for a reading or two, or an information action item. This would be an item that ultimately it would require a board vote to approve.
Right. So I think the idea of if we possibly can have it for information only in January. I mean, if we can,
I'm going to move the mountains.
Right. I think we're looking at February. I think we're going to need at least a reading prior to. I mean, I would be very surprised if if it works out. Because it's kind of it's slippery. So, I think that's the plan, would be to seek legal counsel based on their time frame when we can get a resolution drafted that meets those requirements. And then at the first opportunity, we have a regular scheduled board meeting. It most likely would be information only, followed by a meeting a month later, which would be action item, info action if there was more changes.
Correct. And also know that when working with legal counsel, I am sure there's aspects of this that the three of you have not considered. And so when the draft is shared with you, I will certainly point out what legal counsel recommended that is anything different.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's so we are now on to item 14C, which is information, discussion, and request for the approval of the revised governance handbook. And this is Trustee Pelosi and Kerr.
Okay, bear with me.
So I will just start by saying Jeannie and I and Dr. Wilson met a couple of times to review this. We talked about it briefly at our last board meeting to say that we talked about it in session. That we would bring back to you with the final changes, and Dr. Wilson did a great job of capturing our notes. I don't think that we've made a lot of, major changes to the handbook. I think it's mostly cleaning up some language. I would say one new thing that we did that we thought was important was the orientation of newly elected board members, and we added some more to that that we felt that was necessary. I mean, you can see it all outlined there in red, but I do think that one of the things that we came away with that is it's a very good handbook. We added the word all for all students quite a few times in there, just because that is our focus. And we added a section about regularly reviewing the governance handbook, so that, and whether that just means annually, maybe it means every 2 years. But I do think that there were, just some little details that we wanted to add, like what constitutes like district events that a board member should attend, things like that. So you can kind of glance through it. I don't know if you have any questions by it, once you reviewed it, because there's a lot of pages there, and I don't necessarily want to take you through 32 pages. Jeannie, anything that you would like to add to that?
No, what we did include the governing board principles within the document. We included the I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
The turn, like a couple of some board policies as well. Added those, but that's.
And I think we did. Regarding the communications piece, I think that we talked about before, we did add a little section in there about the Brown Act, because I do think that there is, I do think a lot of community members are not aware of how bound we are by the Brown Act. And it really, it makes communication unique. It can make it challenging, because this is the only time that we really get to all talk to each other. And I think, so we just put that in there in case anybody wanted to be familiar with it. I think that was something to know. We decided that on the thing about the time frame about responding to emails, that was indeed too convoluted to put a time frame on, because 8 hours to one person, what does that mean? If we said if an email came in at 8 o'clock at night, are you bound to answer that by 5 o'clock in the morning? Or so we just decided that it would be shortly and that everybody would use their best judgment in responding to an email. If as board president, that if you were out of town, that obviously that would have to be taken into consideration if you were traveling for work, things like that. So we decided to leave that be. That was our recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Trustee Kerr, that you can think of that we?
I don't think so. Nothing significant. Anything major.
Okay.
Any public comment? Trustees, any questions or comments?
I just have on page 5, I'm sorry, the one sentence that you starred, that you added to ensure that board meetings, it needs an S. Our content.
How did you see that? Oh my gosh.
I've just my editing hat.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just, I've done it too many times, so sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And on page 4, the last paragraph that was added about board member school activity engagement, I'm wondering if those two sentences could be combined rather than added as an addition to. So basically, it's pointed out that the members of the governance team will strive to attend all activities the superintendent has identified as a key item. And in addition, board members will strive to attend a variety of activities throughout the year.
Sure.
So
Right.
to me, I think that possibly just needs a little tweaking to smooth it out. That's the only thing I noticed in there.
Perfect.
Julio, did you have any comments concerning the? You don't have to come up with any. It's just curious.
No. Well, no. Actually, adding the addition to the kind of the mentoring of new board members, I think that's a good addition to just have more protocol with that on when we have a new board member.
So you're okay with what's there then right now? Yeah. Okay.
So I guess we're at the point with this one. I am totally comfortable, and it sounds like there was a small little change there, and we made a change in that item G to make that. I'm very comfortable moving forward this if the rest of the trustees are. So at this point, I'll say, is there a motion to approve the revised? Oh,
Can I just thank Jeannie and Lisa for the work, because I know that this reading through these documents that you've spent, it seems like a lifetime with, reading them through again and again.
Absolutely riveting.
It's a lot of work.
Sorry you didn't raise your hand. So.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you to Dr. Wilson too.
Yes.
She spent a lot of time with us.
Of course.
She worked with Babs Cabin as well, who really helped drive it initially, who gave us the foundation of what we should be focusing on. And that was really key, because we could have been all over the place maybe without that. But she really helped keep us focused on what was important to align us with our board principles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And last but not least, the most important one, Miss Madrigal, for taking care of all of this for us.
Yeah.
So thank you, Erica. Thank you.
she's probably long asleep by
I
now.
hope she is.
I hope so
she
too.
is.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the revised governance handbook as amended?
I move to approve the governance board handbook as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are down to item 14D, which is a report on the California School Boards Association Annual Education Conference, CSBA, that we just got back from San Francisco earlier this month. So the whole board went down. Mr. Chris Heller joined us along with the superintendent. So we had a governance team of 7 and also Sammy Rabin. So we had a very, it was a good time to get down there. Just for those of you that don't know, it's attended by about 5,000 school board members and superintendents and CBOs and chief academic officers. And so there's a whole bunch of various strands of information that happen over this 3-day conference. So if there's a strand or two that a board member would like to share, given our time tonight, please do so. So
I can give 2 bullet points. I would say the one thing that this is my second conference, and the one thing that is very reassuring and makes me very happy and proud is that as I sit in some of these seminars and these sessions, I whether I'm with a fellow trustee or by myself, I look and say, well, we're doing that. We've been doing that. And I think that's a testament to the work our district does and our staff does, because when people are like, oh, well, that sounds great. And it's like, okay, well, that's great. It is great because we've been doing it for 2 years. So that's one of my biggest takeaways from the conference. And I thought one of the session that Dr. Wilson and I attended on board representation from the student was really great. And I think that you probably noticed on your conference schedule that student voice was deemed a critical issue at this year's conference. So meaning that there is a trend in education of having more student voice and hearing from them. And we sat on this session of these amazing 4 high school students who were their board representatives, and we learned a lot. We took away some great information that things that we can perhaps enhance our position here for the next person. So there was some great stuff that came out of it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Julio?
Yeah, I'll go quick. My first experience here, and so I as well. I mean, I was more than anything, I was inspired and motivated. Just seeing all the board members and superintendents and administrators, they are kind of just everyone's in the goal of making our public schools better for children. So that was one thing that I got out of the conference, and then the other one was just realizing how much learning there is and how much information is available. And really, as a board member, it requires all that in order for us to grow and get more knowledge. As board members, and just hearing other districts present, it just left me with both a sense of validation of, like Lisa said, that we're doing a lot of the things correctly here at the district for our students. But it also left me with a sense of work of some things that are still required ahead of us. So, like the superintendent likes to say, continuous improvement. So that's something that's seared into my head now. But for me, it was a great conference, and also too, just to be outside of the boardroom or the meetings, just to kind of get to know the board members on a personal level was great, and the administrators as well.
So I will just be really brief. I'm really afraid to mention this one, but this was probably one of the best seminars, or the best presentations that I've seen probably in the last 3 or 4 years at a CSBA. It was called Grading for Equity. The author of this book spoke. It was a fascinating presentation. I'm afraid to mention grading because he said it's the third rail. You don't talk about grading. Teachers don't get instruction in grading. Grading is a very personal thing to each teacher, but his book is riveting, and I think that it's something that we should. I'd like to, if anyone wants to borrow it, I have it, and I'm hoping that maybe Chris might want to have it as extra reading for his group of the homework team if they want to read it, because I don't want to ask anyone the author said you can't ask anyone to read this book because they won't want to. But it was a fascinating subject. The data is clearly very interesting on how equitable grading closes the achievement gap, which is something that we want.
Right. So it was difficult for me to choose which one because I went to a lot of very interesting workshops but the one that I thought that was especially interesting, just because of kind of what's going on today, is the special education. And it's, in a nutshell, special education continues to get more and more expensive for school districts. It's also very important that the districts make sure that they dot their T's and dot their I's and cross their T's on on every single thing that they do, because they can get into a lot of difficulties if they don't. So it's I know Chris and I spoke a lot about it after that, as far as where I can understand now why the whole IEP process is. It has to be very, very specific in what our professionals are doing, just not only for our students, but just for our district, for our district to stay out any kind of legal problems.
Thank you. I went to a LCAP presentation on parent engagement, and we're always trying to reach out for communication and ideas. And what came from me was a neighbor, and that's why I went to it. It was Winters Unified over the hill, and they have they call them a kinder bag, and it's basically for TK, kinder, and any new student, and it's essentially a small swag bag that has has a water bottle, has a lanyard, has a little bag with the school emblem on it, but more importantly, it has a folder inside that has a letter from each of the principals that describing basically what the programs are at each level. So even if you have a kindergartner, you could read about what's going on, obviously both languages, in Spanish and in English. And then on top of that, it also has a page or two about resources, so the ones that are available within the schools and without the schools. And I did make contact with the Winters board member, or I should say the superintendent, and I do go over there. I haven't gone over there yet, but I'm going to go over and get a sample packet just to bring back to share with the district to see what they put into it. And part of it is, of course, that in that is parent engagement and PK and all the other things. And they when they had their issue of how do they reach out, they decided, instead of trying to engage all the students, I think we do a fantastic job already, but it might be in one other way to really get that new student, brand new person, and then at the same time they would know what's going on at the different districts. And I'm not saying that it would go to all the students, it would just go to the new students, and it would just kind of be a slow progression. So anyway, that was my little, but I'm going to wait and get the paper back, and I'll present it. So and if I can, for some reason my computer just died. So we are on to item 15, which is future agenda items. Trustees, anything you'd like to add this time of night? Okay. And that takes us to item number 16 for adjournment. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion time is, looks like about 9:47.
Could you get on a microphone, Mr. Conwell? Could you say that on a microphone, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, did I miss all that? Oh, time is 9:47, and we are adjourned. Right? What's that now? Oh, well, and I was just talking with no.